That's the whole purpose. Wait a minute. Oh my. Good evening, all you Minties, and welcome back to another episode of Reelz Talk with your host, the amazing Amanda, my co-host, Uncanny Omar, and our special guest, Peter, Crushing Crisis.
What's up, Peter?
How are you?
I heard you liked X-Men.
Yeah, we heard you were a fan, so we thought it would be nice to invite you to review this epic first season of X-Men 97.
Yeah, well, I usually try to not talk about X-Men on the internet. But I had such a good time for Omar's birthday talking about Mutant Massacre with Amanda that I could not resist coming back and talking to Amanda about X-Men again.
Yeah,
exactly. Omar's just here.
Wait a minute.
What's going to be really interesting is my opinion of X-Men Mutant Massacre is going to be so different from X-Men 97.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
To me, my X-Men. To me, my what's up, Phil? How are you? How is everybody doing? Omni Bros and NMC. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's almost like we should have the same PR to talk. Welcome to Die. Yes, that is from the video game, by the way, if you're not familiar with the video game. Having said that, I can't stay. Good night.
Oh,
good night, Craig. Be good, buddy.
Watch on the replay, buddy.
To me, my Minties. Oh, wait, was I not supposed to spoil it yet? Oh, man, what time is it? This is a good question. What time is it in New Zealand?
I was asking the same thing.
It is noon. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-haired, and
okay.
I got to watch it last night with Kid Crisis. She only watches every other week, so I got to watch it live with her with our eyes wide. She was like chewing her whole. She went past chewing her nails and was like chewing down to here on her fingers. She was so nervous about what was happening.
She got to the wick.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just as nervous. I'll be honest, because you never know where these things are gonna go.
I was, because I don't know any of the stories that it's based off of, so I didn't know where it was going or where it's going to end up after this season.
Oh well, we're here to fill you in, Amanda.
That's what
we're gonna let you know exactly where, well, what we think is gonna go. So we are gonna talk about the entire season. So if you all have not seen the entire season, big spoilers, lots of things happening, lots of things. Yeah, deaths and maybe resurrections, and you never know. It's X-Men, so whatever it is, it's going to be great. So 10 episodes. Peter, were you a fan of the original X-Men cartoon?
Absolutely. I mean, it was formative. I remember I would be at my my dad's house and I would have to mow the lawn, and I was like, oh, can I mow the lawn before it comes on, or does it have to be after? Because it would be Saturday morning, and it was fun because it was very current with the comics at the time. Like, they were adapting storylines live out of the comics not too long after they were happening, as well as going back for Claremontian stuff. So it felt like you're in this like special club if you were reading the comic books and watching the original animated series, because they were just bringing in so much stuff like Cable and Bishop that was just happening just in those years at that moment. So I think it was a really unique for that and many other reasons. And I was a big fan at the time. I never saw the last few seasons until it came back on Disney Plus and became accessible again.
Oh wow! So you had never seen the way that it ended?
Yeah, I'd never seen the last 2 seasons, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
And Amanda, we talked about this before, but
yes.
were you a fan of X-Men 90s? Well, the original series. The original
casual fan in that when it came out, I was about 8 years old, and I would watch it when it would come on, in the mornings or whatnot. So, I mean, I did watch it because I used to collect the trading cards. It's so weird that of all the things I would have collected back then, it was X-Men trading cards. I don't know why. I think I was destined to start enjoying Marvel at some point. But so I watched it casually, knew some of it, but I never really watched the entire series. So I started watching it when it came out on Disney Plus. So once it was there, I started watching it. And yeah, getting to watch this was pretty exciting to go back and see the difference in the animation styles, but also see how they're continuing the story after all these years. Man, it's been a long time between.
It's been a long time since
Already 2.
1996. I'm not aware, but did the series get canceled or did it just come to a natural conclusion? They were like, yeah, that's good enough. 5 years is good. It's a good run for a
that's a
cartoon.
Well, I think in the final season they were trying to have there was budget cuts because the animation studio changed in the final season, which is why the animation looks a little bit different and kind of like darker and not as detailed in the last season. So I think it was just that era of Saturday morning kids cartoons had run its course, and that's not any kind of insider knowledge, just my vague awareness of the production changes.
Mm.
Well, I guess that makes sense though. If because at that time Spider-Man was coming out, and then they had a Fantastic Four, and they had Iron Man as well. Because I think the 90s were just dominating. They also had an Incredible Hulk cartoon, didn't they?
Yeah.
I was out of the loop by then. I was out of the this is the new, because I was out of comics by that time. I had stopped reading comics against my better judgment.
Yeah. We all
And did you say we all make mistakes?
Yes.
Yes, we all make mistakes. That is correct. But
Yeah.
it was just it was interesting because when this was announced, I was like, I know there's going to be so many people really excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
I underestimated how many people were going to be excited about this. Because when I think of the X-Men like 97 or the 90s cartoon, I can see like, there's definitely an amount of people that enjoyed it, but I didn't expect them to be like, oh, it's coming back. But I should have known better. Nostalgia goes a very long way.
Well, and also it was so accessible, right? It wasn't a movie you had to buy a ticket to. You didn't have to go to a comic store. It was on public broadcast television at a time that we all watched it. And it's been amazing to me to not only see the comics community on Twitter, but just like random friends on Facebook being like, yo, X-Men, drag queen podcasts that I listen to talking about X-Men and their favorite X-Men characters. Like everybody who used to watch it and because Disney Plus has such penetration, people are just so back, and it's hard to compare it to any other Marvel property. And that's always been true about X-Men. It's really, when it's cooking, when they let it be what it's meant to be, it's really hard to compare it to anything else in comics other than maybe Batman, because that's the level of penetration that X-Men had in the early 90s.
It's really true. It did. It was everywhere. The fact that someone like myself as an 8-year-old would be collecting their trading cards when I didn't read the comics, and that really wasn't what I gravitated towards. That is the prime example of the penetration that it had in the pop culture at the time. So,
I have to ask, anybody in the chat just got into X-Men through X-Men 97? I doubt it, but just out of curiosity, if anybody's watching right now, did you watch the original series? Or is this your first time watching it and you're like, oh, now I got to go back? Like, I got to go back to that original series. I'm always curious if somebody came to the X-Men through the cartoon. I know some of my viewers came to get the comics because of the cartoon. I never heard of the X-Men until 97. Now, you are a
appreciate
liar.
That's a wonderful.
You are a liar. What's a comic book? Ban yourself. Never got into X-Men, so no.
Warren, you should not have asked. You should not have asked that question.
Warren, the fact that you're from Kentucky just makes everything you say even worse. Because how can you represent our state, man? Come on.
We love you, Warren. Never stop.
Yep.
I guess we all need our nemesis.
Yes.
And Warren is definitely mine.
Yeah, Max is like, what is X-Men?
What is near mint condition? I like that even better.
Yeah, that's even better. Wait a minute. Whoa, Ryan. X-Men, that maybe stop reading comics.
Shut up. That's not true at all. Now you guys are trolling. I came ready. I came with drinks. Yes, I watched the original series growing up. And parts of it, grew up, bought up the seasons to watch it. And then again, before the new series started. That's awesome. No, my friend from college was a big Jim Lee fan. Your friend has good taste in comics, or art, rather. I'm also a big Jim Lee fan. But that is interesting that you bring up Jim Lee, because that is the art style that was borrowed heavily for the costumes and everything going into the original X-Men series. And as Peter has said, they in the original series, they borrowed from all the storylines. I know Peter knows this, but the comics actually borrowed something from the cartoon. several things, right? But one of the biggest ones was the Phalanx Covenant. Phalanx Covenant was supposed to be the pitch for the cartoon, and I think it was Bob Harris. And please correct me, Peter, if you know. Somebody said that's too good of an idea for the cartoon. We are going to use it for this comic book. Like, we're going to use it this summer for the crossover. And that's how they got the idea for Phalanx Covenant. But it was like Jubilee walks into the mansion and then everybody's taken over by something. I can't remember. But I thought that was really interesting that it was the other way around for that particular storyline.
Interesting.
I mean, Morph in a way changed, right? Morph in the comics at that time was dead because it was the Changeling. And then by the time we got to Age of Apocalypse, Morph started looking more like the Morph from the cartoon. And
that was a huge Easter egg for comic readers that Morph from the cartoon was in Age of Apocalypse, which, ultimately begat Exiles. And so the cartoon had a lot of impacts on the comic books.
And so much so that they even changed like the way that he looked, like like his, because when I say Morph, and if you came from the cartoons, you know that Morph has, bald, white, but in the comics, he wore that ridiculous helmet. It wasn't until the Age of Apocalypse that he looked like that and joked around like Morph did in the cartoon too. Season 2 can't come soon enough. Yes, the episode One Man's Worth inspired Age of Apocalypse. Oh, that's really interesting. X-Men Evolution was my intro to X-Men because I was 7 when it first aired. Then I went back and watched the reruns of X-Men, the animated series on ABC Family. Fell in love with the opening theme music. I think everybody did. Everybody loves that music.
I'm glad they kept
wasn't Morph cartoon introduced, then got into the comics? So in the comics, the way it was explained, because when the cartoon came out, I remember thinking, who the hell is Morph? Because, being an X-Men reader, that's just what you do as a kid. You're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Then you start seeing Morph's power and you're like, oh, this has to be, I can't remember who. I didn't think it was Changeling at first. And it wasn't until they wrote the Age of Apocalypse that I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, that's pretty cool. They even joked about the ridiculous headgear that Morph was or Changeling was using. But that's definitely one that came because of the cartoon. And during the Exiles, that is the way Morph acts and looks from the cartoon. Be right back. Gotta watch the final episode before I go. Morph is OPAF this season. We need to talk about that too, because that was a little confusing for me. I'm not sure if anybody else.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. Did they always have the powers of the people that they morphed into? I haven't watched the original for like a year or two now. And I was like,
well, I haven't
seen like they often had their powers, at least their physical powers.
Yeah.
My brother just recently saw it and he said that Morph didn't acquire the powers. So we got a taste of that like in the first few episodes, that Morph now has the ability. But then again, it could be like everything in the comics was explained. Oh, that's just a second mutation. Sure.
Yeah.
Secondary mutation. That explains everything.
Look, is it fun? This is a cartoon. I'm not all the as prickly as I can get about comic books. I think the rule of cool definitely applies to a cartoon, and it's not that this cartoon didn't make sense. It made a heck of a lot of sense. But I think anybody who's writing kind of rules lawyer articles about how Morph's powers work is maybe missing the joy that they're supposed to be getting from X-Men 97.
But if that's what you're harping on.
Oh, but Peter, you know that there are people that are like, this is impossible. I think my brother was one of them, and I was like, just let it go. Just let it go. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, it reminds me of the first X-Men movie when Mystique is having that iconic fight with Wolverine, and she turns her hand into chains, and the chains clank, and then they tangle up his adamantium claws. I'm like, that's not how that worked in the movie theater as a nerd. And so, but you know what? When I rewatched that movie, that is one of the most iconic sequences I remember from that movie. So sometimes in visual media, the rule of cool trumps continuity making sense.
I like the way you put that because that is so true. If it looks cool, then sure, why not? Yeah, I think I got over it when Morph was turning into, what was it? It was maybe it was Archangel, I think, or the Hulk. I can't remember. But
well, and then Kid Crisis, when Oh, something. Oh, she goes, Sunspot can't fly. And I said, actually, the backdraft
yes!
of I had to actually my child, unfortunately.
Oh no.
I said, you're
It's
just not
what
that
you
far
do,
into
Peter.
X-Force yet. Kid Crisis. Hold your horses.
It's what you do. You got to teach these kids at a young age. Nobody knows better than Dad. That's right.
Yes,
He
better than
knows
Dad.
better than me. Get out of here. Do you know who I am? So let's talk about the season as a whole, and we can. I think the way we probably need to do this, because it's just such a good series, like maybe rate each of the episodes and then give it like a overall rating, like
Okay.
what we thought about each of the episodes. Really quick, rapid round of just
Woo! Okay.
numbering.
There's 10 episodes. So yeah.
Well, without going into detail, you could just talk about why you enjoyed it, what it was that you enjoyed about the episodes, and what made it work for you and what didn't work for you. Let me get a slideshow going here, and we can start. So everybody that's watching right now can also play along. So you guys can talk about, if episode 1 did not work for you, why not?
We have a slideshow for this?
I
was
think
gonna
I
say,
did.
Omar, it sounds like a lot of
Jeez.
preparation.
He never preps for this show.
Yeah.
So
I got
I'm shocked.
Okay, Peter's here. Don't embarrass me.
What? I mean, we do a ranking, and it's like the night of. He's like, I think I'll put where's the link to that ranking that you created?
That was you. You do the rankings. Give me 1 second. I'm finishing this up. And
You're finishing the slideshow that we're
I was
doing.
like, I don't remember being asked to make a slideshow.
It's better than 10. It's better than doing it later on. Okay.
Oh,
Let me cook, as my kids say.
I
Let
did
me
not.
cook.
Yeah.
My
And
kids.
because we did do a quick review of, I think, the first
3 episodes we did.
no, 5 episodes.
What? We
Yeah.
did?
Yes.
Okay.
We got to Genosha.
Look, I'm just going to tell you, this isn't like a phenomenal.
Because you gave it an
review.
8 out of 10, and you said where the rest of the season goes. No,
Oh, yeah,
I gave
you
it
got
an
it, right? So for episode 1, to me,
Mhm.
my X-Men. What did you all think? What worked for you all? How much wine is Amanda gonna drink for this stream?
Okay, first
To
of
listen
all,
to me and Peter talk about X-Men?
yeah, I'm just
need
gonna
another
sit back
bottle.
here and listen to I'm gonna get some knowledge. Episode 1, great introduction to the season, great introduction to all of the characters, especially for those people who may not have watched the original X-Men series, but are familiar with the X-Men. I think it hit all the right marks as far as an introductory first pilot episode, if you will, especially the ending. So for me, this one was a 10 out of 10. I love the first episode.
Okay. Peter, what about you? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? Is it a perfect 10 out of 10 for episode 1? And I'm
I
looking
think
at
the way
chat
that it
to see what they
opened was just fantastic. Like, give us conflict right away. Remind us who the X-Men are. Show us that, where the world is. Take us back to 1997, as it were. And, as I said, I'd watched the finale of the original series on Disney Plus, but maybe a year or two ago when Disney Plus first added it all. And so I kind of was like, what happened with the professor? Who's on the team right now? So I really felt like it oriented me. It had so many good lines. It made Cyclops cool, which sometimes can be hard to do. And that ending sequence against the Sentinels, it's just like everything I ever wanted from an X-Men in motion fight sequence. Storm with the giant whirlwind of glass in the middle of the desert. Cyclops falling out of the jet, cushioning himself with the psychic blast the optic blast, and then Rocket boosting around on the ground. I just think it was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it was like 10 out of 10. It could not have been more fun. It had mutant machines, mutant circuits, Gambit charging up stuff. It just was everything you could possibly want. And at that point, I'm like, well, there's the high point. They put it all in the first episode. It's not going to get any better than that. And I sometimes am wrong.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks. Peter is wrong. Had to play it again. Okay.
Somebody's going to clip that.
10 out of 10?
Yes.
Okay, episode 1. I completely agree with everything everybody said, everybody in the chat. Even the play on to me, my X-Men at the very end when he's reading the will of Professor X.
Yes.
He's like, and he leaves everything to me, my X-Men. And I was like, I caught that, Magneto. I got you. Oh, man, that was slick. And Peter is right. People forget how to write Cyclops. Cyclops was such a badass. The way he moved around with his optic blast, which is difficult to do, like to show that kind of movement in the comics. Like we've seen him in the comic books, like falling out of an airplane and, you know, reduce his speed from falling by using his optic blast. But when he's fighting the humans with the Sentinel parts, oh my gosh, that was so badass. I wish I was a Cyclops fan, so I could have been like, yes, my day has come.
Too late.
Wow.
And I really just appreciated how it was storyboarded. Like it just had so much motion, and the way that it would follow a character as they use their powers. I feel like so much in movies now we get all these quick cut action scenes, which is partially just an artifact of the way that movie making has gone, editing has gone, and also special effects have gone. And it was just such a pleasure to watch him do something fast with his power and be able to linger on it, you know? And I know that that's a difference between animation and live action. You can't compare the two. But for me, as somebody who loves these characters and wants to see them be their best self and do cool stuff, it was fun to just get to linger and see it happen and not quickly cut away a second later.
And I was very much like Peter. I think I even said that during our live stream with Amanda, like, oh, I think this is as good as it's going to get. I don't remember. I played it safe. I'm like, you know, for the rest of the episodes, I'm going to say this, that episode 1 was so strong. And don't get me wrong. Like the series is amazing. I have 2 little minor things that I wanted to say, but it doesn't come till later. Episode 1 was perfect. I loved it. I love it. The theme that plays when they're fighting the Sentinels got me all goosebumpy. Like I was like, oh, this is so cool. I hope the normies come out and start talking about how cool X-Men is again, like it was during the 90s. Yeah, I'm okay with how cool Cyclops is. Episode 2. What did you all think of this one? I think they premiered the first 3 episodes. Is that right? Together?
They did. 2. Yes. First 2, right? Yes. No. Yeah, it was the first 2. Yeah, not the first 3. The first 2. So like I don't remember Fire Made Flesh. Episode 2. I think this still it rode the high of the first episode. We continued the conflict with Magneto. We are introduced to the main conflict in here being the Executioner coming in and Storm losing her powers. And then, of course, the introduction of Jean Grey's identical twin or clone, Madeline Pryor, if you will. So this one, I still think it was a strong episode. I would give it like a 9 out of 10. I still really enjoyed it. And I think it kept the momentum going because when we get to some of the later episodes before episode 5.
So apparently it was episodes 1 and 2 that premiered back to back. Okay. And reviewers got the first 3, I think. Wait a minute. We're reviewers. How did I not get the first? How did I?
We're not.
I must have lost my invite, just like they lose all my invites.
One day.
Okay. So what would you rate this episode, Amanda? Oh, you haven't talked about it. Like this is the Mutant Liberation begins. This is when Magneto
has said.
Would you say? Did you say 10? Did you say 10?
I said 9 out of 10.
James, are you writing that? James, can you write that down for us to keep tabs on our scores? Because I know I'm not going to be able to do that. I was listening completely.
Have you been drinking already?
It's been a long day. So I'm glad that you are talking about that. That's funny. Okay, thank you, James, my man. Peter, that was a 9 out of 10 from Amanda. What about you?
This is one of my favorite pieces of X-Men media ever. If I without hyperbole, I would give it like a 12 out of 10. Okay. The writing for Magneto was just so off the charts. I was live, just like chatting, writing down all of these amazing things in the script, things that were from the comics, things that were from actual social justice movements in real life, the way that they kind of merged the plot from Uncanny X-Men 200 into also having the Executioner, into a number of other things all happening at once, and then ending it with Madeline arriving instead of ending, or Jean, I guess, instead of ending it with Madeline having the baby. It just, to me, this is what I want from this cartoon and from any kind of like comic book media. I want it to feel comic booky. I like when we take elements that we all know and adapt them. But I don't want to just see a straight adaptation. You can't beat the comic books. They're comic books. And I just felt like this episode like really understood how to take the things from the comic books and not just imitate replicate them. When Storm lost her powers, which I was like, oh no, are they going to do it? It was starting to really like lead into it. And then it happened, and seeing it happen like that so quickly, so abruptly, and her just on the ground, kind of like moaning, realizing what's happened as she reaches out to try to use her lightning. It was heartbreaking, and in a totally different way than the comics could accomplish. To me, this is like, there's no X-Men movie that will ever beat episode 2 of this season for me. This is the peak of X-Men for me.
This one's peak X-Men. This is interesting with episode 2. So
Plus
this is
Magneto. Look at my hair idol. Look at that. If only I should age that gracefully and learn to apply eyeliner that well. Look at him.
Someone put a picture of Pierce Brosnan up next to him, and I said, "Yeah, that'll work." He has like this long gray hair now, and I was like, "Dang, okay."
He's got a good accent too.
He's got a good accent. He could be, okay.
Okay, Peter. 10 out of 10 then?
10 out of 10. 12 out of 10. I mean, we could go above.
12 out of 10, Peter?
I was tempted to say the first episode was only a 9 because this to me is the peak, but I can't grade the first episode down for not killing me the way that this episode did. They're just both 10s in different ways.
That's a good way to look at it.
Episode 2 for me did it for me for different reasons, and that's mainly because of all like the little Easter eggs, like the basketball game, the outfits, Magneto's outfit, the trial of Magneto, the importance or the fake importance of the Executioner, kind of like the way he was introduced in the original comic, right? Everybody built him up. Oh, it's the Executioner. He collects dead people's weapons. He's so edgy. And much like in the comics, he kind of disappears and we never see him again. I mean, I'm sure he'll pop up here and there. I thought that was really interesting. But like even like Wolverine's shirt, Cyclops shirt, like they're going back to the 90s. It's so cool that they're wearing the outfits that they wore in the 90s. This is a great episode. And you're right, Magneto's speech and just his dialogue is top notch. I can say that about the show. Like just as a whole, the writing is so damn good. This is probably a 9 out of 10 for me. I'm with Amanda on this one. Not as good as episode 1, but completely solid still. Nothing wrong with it. Like, just to me, it wasn't as strong as episode 1. Even though that they did, Magneto has this like double meaning all in both episodes where he's like, "Don't make me drop." What does he say? "Don't make me drop you" or something like that.
Something like
physically holding them up, but he's talking about something else. I like that. That was cool. Are you all on crack?
Yeah, I'm like, I can't believe what I'm hearing here. Not 9.
9 out of 10 is still a good rating, guys.
Were you at the UN with me and Magneto?
Yeah. I was. But I'm saving the 10 out of 10. I gave the first episode a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and if you've seen me on these shows where they make me give ratings, I so seldom give a 10 out of 10 to anything he never in life.
Hates it.
I don't think life is that good, honestly.
See, I'm overhype everything, so I give everything super high ratings and probably sometimes just
a 2 out of 10. Shut up, Brian. I'm gonna
don't be that guy.
Shut up, William. Don't make me let you down. That's what he said.
That's what it was.
That was
Which is such a fun play on words, right? Because it's like, I don't want to let you down, or you're gonna let me down. But what a brilliant turn of writing. Don't make me let you down. Just writing so smart. And the thing that really struck me is like, it's not just because something's animated, it doesn't have to be for kids. And even if it is for kids, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be great. I think we've seen so much great kids media in the last decade. Steven Universe, She-Ra, Kibo, if you've watched that on Netflix, amazing show. So dense with jokes, so much good writing that like it feels great that this had writing that you could see in the MCU. I said when I finished watching this episode, it felt like I watched something that was from the same minds that created Black Panther. Like it was that elevated and the dialogue was that good to me.
Why is the dialogue so good in this, and why can't it be as good in the MCU? But we'll save that for.
That's a discussion that we should have.
Let me drink a little more. Episode 3. Oh,
what a great screenshot!
Yeah, it's great.
I searched for that one.
Oh, of course you did.
My queen. Okay, Amanda. Episode 3. This is Fire Made Flesh.
Fire Made Flesh. I enjoyed this episode. It reminded me of a little bit of the, Mr. Sinister taking on with Jean Grey and this whole where her powers are, and then we're introduced to Nathan, and then we get this, ending sequence of Storm, because I was wondering where the heck she was going to be now that she lost her powers and she ran away from home, if you will. Introducing her with Forge. So I enjoyed this episode, probably not as much as the first two. 3 and 4, where I was kind of like, I found myself not as engaged. And then by the time I got to episode 5, I was like, okay, I'm engaged again. So for this one, I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10.
Peter.
I just saw James say this in the chat. It moved so fast. And I know that's what X-Men 97 is. It's compressed. Mm-hmm. We have to get through the story material. And I actually think it was a pretty smart compression of Inferno to kind of just mush it all together, make Sinister the big bad, have Madeline kind of going crazy with it. Because I kept thinking, are we going to do all of New York? Is Spider-Man going to fight a mailbox? But none of that happened. And I think it worked, but it just moved a little fast. And I didn't really think it ever made sense why Madeline was summoning demons. Like, if you really know your X-Men stories, you're like, oh, well, it's her inner demons of suddenly doubting that she was a real person. But it just didn't have that magic connection, meaning Ileana Rasputin, just not magic. And so that kind of, at first I really didn't like it. Then I watched it again with the kid, and I was more focused on the animation and less on how they were adapting Inferno. And I think that this may have been one of the high points of animation for the series. The whole stained glass window sequence with Magneto fighting Madeline is so, so cool. And even the 3D effect when they're dropping down and to fight all of the demons in that kind of pit of hell. So I think at first I was like a 5 out of 10, like, meh. But then I watched it again, and I guess I'm like a 7 out of 10. It just has a few too many flaws with why are there demons for me to like totally love it. But I think creatively it was beautiful.
I'm with you. I think this is one that has beautiful, beautiful animation. And one thing we haven't noted is how, X-Men, you don't skip the intro. And this is the show where you pay off not skipping the intro, because every episode has something different about it. And even sneaking in Easter eggs in the episode where you see the people at first, and then later on they're redrawn as Sentinels. That was an amazing touch. But this episode is my issue with the entire series, and that is it goes by too quick. I watched this episode 3 times because I love Inferno. And I know that's not what I'm getting. I'm not getting an adaptation of Inferno. It's just a quick adaptation. But it's just seriously weird that we just saw the baby and then he's sent off in the next episode. And then within the same episode, she goes bad, and then she's like, I'm okay now. I'm going to call myself Madeline Pryor.
Well, and I didn't know,
we don't even need an explanation, but it's
just do it. I mean, Amanda, how did that play for you? You have read some comics with Madeline Pryor in them, but how did it make sense to you in real time as you were watching it?
Well, it didn't. And that's what, when he said he had to watch it multiple times, I did too, because it did move very fast, and I've never read Inferno. So for me, this whole episode, I was like, what is exactly happening? So I did watch it a few times. I think it moved a little bit fast, and maybe it relied too much on people knowing Inferno. Maybe that was the case. But yeah, I like when she's like, call me Madeline, I was like, wait, is that where we're going with this? Because I wasn't sure how we were getting the identical genes and how that was going to make sense. But yeah, she did. It was like one episode she was bad and then she was good again. Yeah, it was a lot for me in one episode.
And there was let me see, a couple of Easter eggs in this one, like Shard showing up. So for fans of not just the comics, but also the animated show, the original one, there was the whole Easter egg with Morph shifting into what he looked like the evil Morph from the 97 or the original series when he came back. But honestly, this was a 5 out of 10 for me, but I'm giving it a 6. Hold on. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 because of Savage Land Rogue. She made an appearance in here. Yeah, and that definitely goes an extra point. This to me, this was the worst episode though for X-Men 97. I wasn't a fan of this one.
Okay,
it also was the episode that got a little bit racy at points, right? We had like Gambit trying to find Rogue, and she was locked in the room with Magneto, walking in to help Wolverine in the shower. I was like, I do not remember the original being quite this.
Well, even some of the angles, the camera angles for Maddie when she's sitting on the chair, I was like, hey, if I pause that fast enough, I bet I could see more leg. Because remember,
Oh
like
my
even her costume looks a lot more different in here.
Yeah.
But the angles, I'm serious, and I know I'm not the only one that notices these things. They do it for the men too. It's equal opportunity, baby. It's X-Men. But some of the angles that they decide to use on the characters as they're moving around, as Peter said, wow, that's actually pretty racy. Yeah. Magneto is kind of hot.
No, he is. I mean, that is not a lie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just like the big shoulders, the nipped in waist, the eyeliner. They really, Magneto he's in drag. I mean, it's a drag character on this
He's attractive.
Yeah.
He's super attractive though.
All right. Episode 4. I can't believe episode 3 was my least favorite. I thought I was going to hate this episode because I hate Mojo with a passion. But I'm going to let Amanda go. I every freaking time Mojo shows up in the comics. We've talked about this.
I can't believe as an Art Adams fan that you could say that about Mojo.
Art Adams aside, I hate it, Mojo stories. Amanda, what did you think of this episode? Because they do something unique in this episode. They put 2 stories together.
Yes, they put 2 stories. And I will say that I was more engaged in Forge and Storm's story than I was with Jubilee and Roberto's story. I understand why they did that storyline in order to build Jubilee and of course Roberto's character and that relationship that we're going to see between the 2 of them, as they're progressing throughout the season. But this episode did not do it for me at all. I mean, I've seen the video game gimmick before in other mediums where they take a character and they're kind of in a video game. And I don't think I've ever read a comic with Mojo in it, so I'm not familiar with the villain at all. So for me, the scenes with Jubilee, Roberto fighting Mojo, I was not as invested in them. I did like Storm's storyline. In terms of what her and Forge were going through. I did like that. So for me, I'd probably give this one a 6 out of 10. It was not my favorite episode. So I was really happy when 5 showed up because I was like, this is okay. I felt like it was a filler episode that we need to do just to establish some storylines and characterization.
Peter, what about you? Motendo Life Death Part 1 mixed together. What did you think of this episode?
I really had fears. This was the point where I was having anxiety that actually this season was going to suck. And the first 2 episodes, they just managed to do something great. And then we were going to have to pretend like it was good for the rest of the season. I loved the video game stuff. Of course, I couldn't tell you how many, probably hundreds of dollars I used to spend on the Wildwood Boardwalk playing that X-Men game every summer. But the Jubilee and Sunspot plot didn't really feel like it was going anywhere. Even when we meet the kind of like older Jubilee and it ties in to the past, it just didn't teach me anything about them really or advance their plot in a significant way, especially compared to every other time Sunspot subsequently got used. And the Storm story, I just hated how they handled it. I really felt like it should have been like a post-credit sequence for several episodes running instead of just trying to do it all as Life Death. I know Life Death is an incredibly famous comic storyline, but also without the first part of Life Death where she's on her own and she witnesses that car accident and everything, which I knew they weren't going to do. It just didn't hit for me. It's like we like went right, or maybe that's the second one. But anyway, this just was a flop for me. Total flop. I was embarrassed to have said that I liked the first 3 episodes as much as I did. Also a flop on rewatch. This is like a 3 out of 10 for me.
Wow, 3 out of 10. Oh, Peter, that hurts. I didn't think this one was that bad. I thought it was weird to mix Life Death and a Mojo story together, but I guess this just goes to show you how fast the show wants to move. They could have done a complete Life Death episode and then complete Mojo episode, but instead they decided to put both of them together. I love all the Easter eggs in this one. It's one of my favorites with the 6-player beat 'em up game, even so much so like they're using the villains like from like the dinosaur people where she's fighting them. I thought that was really cool. The goofy little extra life when her voice actress shows up again from the Crunch storyline. What the heck was her name? Oh gosh,
Court.
Abscissa was the character's name, right? Abscissa.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I'm right. It's Allison Court who used to voice Jubilee.
Okay,
no,
I believe
am I making that up?
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. But
Hmm.
yeah. So she came back to do
Yes,
old,
Alison Court
old.
was the original voice of Jubilee.
Look at you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And having her come back to do Old Jubilee, I thought was a nice touch. Life Death was, I could see where they're going, and I really like what's his name? The guy from Yellowstone being Forge. I think he did a really good job playing Forge.
Who was
I cannot remember his name. Gil, that's his name. Gil Birmingham. He's also Native American. He's great.
who was he in Yellowstone?
He's the big guy that owns the casino.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah, for this one, I don't think it was as bad as you all did. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was still fun. I think there were good things in it. It kept me around. Like I said, it was the episode that I was like, oh man, this is X-Men. This is what I remember. Goofy stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess you need that before the next episode. Now I'm really curious about what you all think about episode 5.
5. Oh God.
So
this
episode 5 is Remember It.
Mhm.
Again, a big play on the words, remember like what happens. And Amanda, take it away. What did you think?
A lot of confused emotions between characters in this episode that is just followed by the most like dramatic ending of an episode of cartoon that you could probably see. This one for me definitely made up for the last 2 episodes and got me really just, I didn't know where they were going, because at this point, by the end of this episode, our 2 leaders are dead. We think they are, right? We don't know. We can only guess where Professor X is. We think that Magneto's dead. Leech is gone.
Oh, God.
Like, what? And then, of course, Gambit and his sacrifice, after knowing that, not him knowing, but the audience knowing that Rogue was choosing like Magneto because they could touch and they had that relationship. And then you have Jean kissing Wolverine, and man, there was a lot of conflict going on internally with all these people. And then we the realization that Cable is Nathan, and oh gosh, this one for me, it ended on, well, not to say a high note, but as far not positive high note, but it was well done. I thought I gave this one a 9 out of 10. I thought this was a great episode. And it brought me back because I was like, I don't know about 4. So I was happy with this episode.
Peter.
It's interesting. It did so much, right? Like it had to do Happy Genosha, and then it had to do this whole middle part with Rogue and Magneto, which also kind of had shades of the Quiet Council. Emma and Shaw were there. Mora was there. It made me think like, oh my gosh, are we going to do like a Krakoa thing? I do think they will eventually. And then to do all of E for Extinction, but to broaden E for Extinction, which was never made especially personal, except for in retrospect, as we found out what it was like on the ground for Emma, to make it just, I think it found a way to improve on a comic storyline by giving it so much more dimension. Even if you had been reading all the Genosha stuff through Magneto Rex and on all of those things, E for Extinction just still was abrupt. It was Grant Morrison ripping the Band-Aid off to create this moment. And in the show, it was a Band-Aid rip, but it also just had so much more dimension. You were rooting for so many different characters. On rewatch with my kid, I realized that it did have a little bit of lumpiness in the pacing. Like she was really almost lost in the middle there. As much as I love my Ace of Base tape from 1993 on cassette, I don't know if the Happy Nation dance sequence needed to be that long. And I also think, I know they wanted to put a big exclamation point, but I always think it's a little bit of a scope problem when you kill that many supporting characters all at once, because it's like, really, you're going to close off all those plots. But again, I think we're going to get Krakoa eventually. So that was with purpose. And of course, the ending was left me speechless. I think I was probably 10 out of 10 when I first watched it. And then seeing it again through my kids' eyes, I was like, okay, there's a couple of flaws, but it's still pretty amazing. So I think I wound up 9. Maybe if we were going really fine, it'd be like 8.8, but we're just going to call it 9. Yeah.
I found this one to be really interesting because I got Hellfire Gala vibes from the dancing.
Yeah.
They were like, let's take all of the Morlocks to Genosha. I'll be honest with you. I did not see E for Extinction coming when I watched this, because you never know where the show's going to go, right? And if we're adapting storylines, they have so many to borrow from. So when you see the Watcher appear on the team, by the way, I watched this episode 4 times. I really like this episode. I watched it once with Melanie, and she was like, "Was that a head?" And I was like, "You goddamn right, that was a head. That is the head that you know something bad is coming." And of course, that's when we got the Tricentennial and the destruction of Genosha. Oh my God, it was brutal. Because I remember I was very much like Peter. I was like, all right, E for Extinction, but they can't go that hard, right? It's a cartoon. And they went
harder.
They went harder.
They went hard. Dude, I don't even like Gambit that much. And by the end, I was crying. Like, I was like
I mean, is it just me? And Gambit haters, please don't come for me. But was this the best Gambit moment of any media ever?
Oh, it's up there. I mean,
like, has he ever been that cool in the comic book?
When he got on the bike and she's flying beside him and he's jumping and he throws the bike
and he launches the bike.
Yeah, Gambit was so badass in this episode. I don't know why she would choose Magneto over him, but that's fine.
Oh, he was so cool. He comes in like. There were moments in here that I was lost watching X-Men, and I've been reading X-Men for goddamn 40 plus years. And when the Morlocks are about to get killed and he comes in, like Gambit comes in like a freaking superhero. And like for a minute, I'm like, oh, everything's going to be okay. The X-Men are here. Like, it's so weird that it brought that out of me. And all these little characters that Glob Herman. How the hell did we get Glob Herman instead of, anyway, doesn't matter.
But like all the Twitter Glob fans are living their best life right now. They got Glob. And then once I realized where we're going, I was like, Andy's going to die.
Dude. This is a 10 out of 10. If I could rate this higher, I would give this a 12 out of 10. This was amazing.
I've never heard anyone say anything like that before.
Yeah, you just copied what you said. I thought 12 was where you went, and that's as high as you go. This was amazing. I mean, her delivery of "I can't feel you" like that. And it faded to black before she even delivered it, which made it even more powerful.
Yes.
Like,
they did a good job.
I was completely blown away. I cannot believe that not only did they adapt it, but they made it better than what we saw in the comics. Because we saw the destruction, but it wasn't like this, right? Like, we got to see it. We got to see people. I forgot freaking Banshee got killed. Like, right from the beginning, he just poof evaporates. I was like, oh my God. And the sound of, we didn't even talk about that. The sounds from World of Worlds, right? Like, they were using the spaceship sounds for the Sentinels. What a freaking amazing little touch that was. Like, to make it so much more eerier. Oh, this to me, this was perfect television. I know it's dark. I know it's, it's sad and mopey, but this was a 10 out of 10. Yeah. I thought episode 1 was like setting the bar high, and I'm like, oh my God, we just went higher. This is amazing. And it makes me happy that I'm an X-Men fan. So I loved it. 10 out of 10.
No, it was a great episode. And yeah, the Lenore Zahn, the voice actress, right? I mean, we talked about this, about how she had just lost, was it her nephew or
a niece?
Her niece.
Yes, right when so you can feel that emotion in that. Yeah, this was that ending was perfect for the story.
I absolutely loved it. Episode 6. Where's Professor X been?
Oh, there we go. This episode, we gotta get Stormer powers back. We gotta figure out what Charles has been up to. That's what episode 6 is. It was so disconcerting to go from that and then like, oh well, we're not even going to touch on what happened in Genosha real quick.
Well, we can't, right? We need a little breather.
Yeah, we need a breather. So let's figure out what's going on with Charles, with the Shi'ar and the Kree Empire, and what's going on. Where did he actually go? And we find out that he's been here the whole time. Which apparently, if you read the comics, which I did not read that many comics to know that this had happened, I guess, or that he was, up there with.
In space.
That is, meanwhile in space. But yeah, this episode for me was a nice breather. I liked it was an interesting story with Lilandra and Charles. No, I don't know if I wasn't like, oh, this is a great episode. I mean, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. It was great for the story that it had to tell, and I'm glad that Storm got her powers back. And I do like how at the end everyone is like, oh, subsequently they're finding out something happened in Genosha, that it had gotten blown up and all these mutants had died, and so now it sets up for Storm and Charles' return to Earth. So, return to the X-Men. But I mean, yeah, it was an 8 out of 10 for me.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Peter, what about you?
This is probably the one I have the most trouble deciding how I feel about, because it did a lot of things that I liked. I feel like even in the comics, we just didn't get much to understand what Xavier went through as the royal consort. We didn't see him at all for so long. Then he's back around like New Mutants 50, right? Well, they're like teleporting around with magic and they run into him in space. And then there's the 2 issues of X-Men and the Starjammers. And then it's like kind of out of the blue when we get him back in Uncanny X-Men 275. And I've always felt like there was more. Like, you have Charles Xavier as the royal consort. Clearly something was happening off screen. And so it was really exciting to see that here. And I thought it was really well developed. And I loved the dynamics. I loved how catty Deathbird was. I loved the psychic classroom stuff. Kid Crisis lost her marbles. She thought it was so funny when he like shoves the apple in one of them in their mouth, or he's like, you have to raise their hand. She just thought that was freaking hilarious.
Awesome.
So I actually really appreciated it. And then Life Death at this point, I kind of was like, okay, let's just get her done. Like, it's not going to, I know it's not going to be the plot that I want it to be, but it had some nice stuff in it in the end. And of course we got Storm in the classic uniform. I'm like waffling between a 6 and a 7, because I don't think it was quite as good as the Inferno episode. I think I have to say 6. I liked it. I like bureaucratic nonsense. This is well established. My favorite kind of superhero story often is superheroes having to go to the DMV, superheroes having to vote, superheroes having to deal with royal intrigue. So from that aspect, I actually really enjoyed it. But just as a viewing experience, it was a little like, but it didn't do the separating the 2 stories for me. This final thing, I know I'm rambling. I love comic books. I don't love TV shows. I don't love movies. I love comic books. So if they're going to do a comic book, I want it to feel comic booky, which often involves that cutting back and forth, right?
Yeah.
So part of why I hated episode 4 is because it split it into 2 little pieces. But like a Claremontian comic book would cut back and forth, this one cut back and forth between Professor X and Storm. And that I had a lot more fun with. We're going to call it a 6, but I actually liked it more than that. But I feel like it wouldn't be fair to grade it as high as Inferno.
So episode 4 is your Tolkien Lord of the Rings, and episode 6 is your Peter Jackson version of Lord of the Rings. Is that what you like? Okay.
Well, if it was based on a comic book, it's based on Tolkien, so that's different.
I get it. Yeah. I was kind of worried they were going to do that with this too. I thought this one was fine. I like this one actually more than I did the episode. What was it? The least rated one. I gave it a 6 or 4. I can't remember what I gave it. Anyway, I thought this one was fine. It's what I needed. I didn't need to know exactly what happened in the aftermath of Genosha right away, because I knew they needed to do something like this to distance us from that. That gives us 2 weeks to sit and think about who died, what's going to happen, who's alive, where is my freaking Emma Frost. She better be Diamond, and she better be found. You know, all
we
these
needed
things.
that breath. We needed that narrative breath.
That. And I appreciated this. Much like Peter said that he likes those DMV episodes, I like when Piccolo and Goku have to go get a driver's license in Dragon Ball Z. They make the best episodes. I don't need them fighting all the time. So I actually enjoyed this one. This was an 8 out of 10 for me. I will say the reason I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 is because I still have issues with the pacing in this one. And the pacing is, holy crap, the Shi'ar are at war. Who are they at war with? Oh, okay, now I got it. Who are all these guys that are showing up? Are they Shi'ar? Because they look a lot different. Who? The Imperial Guard. Wait a second. You know, lots of cool Easter eggs for us comic fans, like Vulcan showing up out of nowhere. But to an average viewer, maybe there's like, all right, hold on. I don't need to buy all the toys. I just need a plot here. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Spoilers for Goku getting a driver's. Yeah, Chi-Chi makes him go get a driver's license.
Oh man, Goku.
Yeah. Episode 3, a 6 out of 10. Thank you for that. James is right on top of it.
Episode 3.
Okay, next episode 7.
Episode 7.
And
Whoa.
this is called Bright Eyes. So, Amanda, what do you
Yeah.
think of this episode?
So this episode for me, I enjoyed it because we get to see Rogue going through. Finally, we're back to the main storyline. We're getting to see Rogue in the aftermath of Genosha, dealing with her grief and her guilt, right? Because it's not just grief of losing both Magneto and Gambit, but it's the guilt of her decisions and the things that she decided, the decisions she made, the actions she had taken, then and eventually, losing two people that I think that she loved very much. So getting to see her kind of go on that war path to find the killer, find the person responsible, right? And dealing with that. And then what does that do to her and how does that change her? And what does that do? So I really thought for me, that was the crux of this episode. And I loved seeing that. I also, of course, it's great to move the plot along. We're starting to get to the point where we're going to reach that three-part conclusion. And for me, this one is definitely like a 9 out of 10. I liked it a lot.
Okay. Peter.
Rogue is probably one of my top 5 comic characters of all time. I felt like this season as a whole gave her the most we've seen her have to do since probably X-Men Legacy. And it was fun to see this dark Rogue plot emerge very organically. Like Amanda just said, like it makes sense. She doesn't start out wanting to kill people. She starts out just wanting to do something. What she's going through the classic stages of grief, right? And she's like, well, at least I could take some kind of agency or control. The Cap scene is just masterful stuff. People on Twitter got all twisted. Like, oh, they're making Cap too much of a cop, or like Cap would help mutants or whatever. Rogue was asking Cap to basically go with her to another country's sovereign territory and like F shit up. And Cap was like, well, we can't do that exactly, Rogue, but I'm willing to help you. And then she eats his shield, which to me is like one of the best things I've ever seen in a cartoon. And then just Rogue breaking into the Hulkbuster base, but then that whole creepy ass scene at the end when they finally all track him down and the fight that ensues. I just couldn't believe how much more stuff it just kept piling. I kept thinking like, wow, this episode feels pretty significant. Surely we're not going to do even more now. And yet we kept doing even more, all the way up to that stinger with Bastion and Magneto with purple people eater on the phonograph on the record player. What a great deep cut. I had to explain some classic music to the child. I just think this was great. Like this is why I signed up for this. None of these plot moments were verbatim from a comic book, but I recognize them from comic books. But the way that it was all assembled and the way that it gave Rogue this like really amazing emotional arc, and then the end was just so creepy and dire. And I was like, how can they fix this? It's like a high 9 out of 10, a very, very, very high 9.
This one had a lot for me. I love that. I love the funeral scene and seeing the Thieves Guild there. Rogue wasn't there, and they're asking, how can she not be here? We get to see Thunderbolt Ross, which we got little cameos earlier on, right? Like of other characters from the Marvel universe, and we know the X-Men are living in this bigger universe. But we also, I assume, this is not the MCU, right? This isn't that universe. This is a different universe.
No,
because just when we talk about episode 10, who was Black Panther at the time? I assume this
is a different
about that. This is a different universe.
Yeah.
I love this episode, man. Like, yeah, you both nailed it on the head. Her just going through the different motions of grief, and it's just so powerful. And then the whole OZT thing, and I was like, okay, we're going to go with Operation Zero Tolerance. And then they named the last 3 episodes, of course, and then Bastion shows up. Morph transforms into Quicksilver, which we haven't really talked about Morph's powers. Like, apparently Morph can now gain the powers of whomever they're transforming to. We do find out for sure that this is where Leech and Callisto did end up dying, so that kind of sucks. Poor Leech. This is I love when she throws his freaking shield. That was so awesome. And you start seeing a dark side of Rogue. 9.5 out of 10. I loved it. Thought it was great. So let's move on to the final 3.
Yeah, I was like, it's interesting because it's like a 3-parter for me. So it's like Yeah.
Amanda, episode 8. This is part 1 of Tolerance. Is
Man, well, I'll tell you that ending with Xavier when he's like to me, my X-Men, and they all are like, wait a minute, hold on, I thought you were gone. Like,
I do love the fact that he left out Jubilee from that picture, and she's like, I just imagine her somewhere going,
what about me,
over
man?
here, Charles.
Yeah, no, I love dramatic things like that in any medium. So for me, that always does it for me. No, this was I love this episode because it really is setting us up for this 3-part finale. We are getting to learn more about Bastion, right? So that's like what is so interesting about who Bastion is. I don't know anything about Bastion. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know anything about him. So I was like, who is this person? Like, I know what the Sentinels are. I know Trask, and I know who Mr. Sinister is, but Bastion, who is this? By Kirk. See you later. So getting, when they go to his mom's house and they learn about Bastion and how his dad was infected with Nimrod and the powers, and then that's how he was born. So he's like a part Sentinel already, and this whole, the operation like to turn regular humans into Sentinels, and they're doing it on their own free will. Like, that's just wild to me. The whole it was such a great storyline, and I did not see it coming as a normal person who's never read it.
Hey, we're normal people too.
I mean, yeah, well, you know what I mean. As someone who's never read the comic books, I have no idea where it was. I was like, whoa, this is going to be a wild, like, where are they going to go? How are they going to end this? So for me, I like this episode because it's setting us up. It's hard because I think all 3 of these episodes go in tandem, like as one big episode. But I guess, yeah, sure, this would be like a 9 out of 10. I liked it a lot. To get us to number 3, or part 3, which is insane where it ends up.
All right. What did you give it, Amanda? One more time.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Peter.
First of all, just witnessing Amanda's joy and confusion and joy and confusion. I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. That itself enhances the episode for me. This had so many good scenes. Like, I think, again, when this really was clicking, it was clicking because it didn't just do a comic storyline. It dug in the way the comic did and let us have moments with everybody. I believe this is the one where Jubilee and Roberto have the conversation about passing with Roberto's mom, right? Or was that last episode? I forget.
This episode, yeah.
I think it's this one. That, yes. I mean, clearly there are some people on the writing staff who have had that kind of experience, whether it be, passing because they have light-skinned passing privilege within their community, passing because they are part of the queer community and they pass for not being queer. It was very, very powerful, but also funny, which I think was the right tone. I don't think you need the cartoon to always like break your heart every time. And so that's what I really liked about the script. Like, the X-Men were in a bad spot and there was some heartbreaking things, but it stayed like really, really entertaining. And it had so many like, moments in it that just kept happening and building and building. And usually when we get into these things, I'm the one who raises my hand and goes, scope problem. It got too big. We can't have this many Sentinels on Earth. We can't do this much of the team. I never felt like that. I felt like it totally justified it. And then the Summers family road trip in the friggin' telekinetic car. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, and then the teleporting.
Yeah.
I think this has got to be a 10. Like, even it doesn't have that quite the level of emotional resonance to me of like the other 10s that I gave, but this is what X-Men to me. This is one of those episodes, and I had the same experience last night watching the last one, where I got to the end, I said, I feel real bad for whoever's going to do live action X-Men, because you can't do this. And not in a cartoon, but like, you need episodes, you need time. People need to stew on this stuff for a while. And if it made me say that, it's a 10.
Yeah.
Operation Zero Tolerance is not one of my favorite X-Men crossovers. Adapting it to
is it anybody's favorite X-Men crossover?
I think there is. I mean, there has dude, I like the crossings, so it's okay. People like things that I don't, and that's fine. So when they said they were going to do that, and I saw the title of the 3 episodes, I thought, okay, well, let's see where this goes. Turning people into Sentinels is just silly. How frightening can they be? man, did they bring it. This episode was so damn good. And when the Sentinels go and attack, like, Trish, tell me, how awesome was that? Like for fans of X Factor, right? Like fans of Beast and Trish together, and then having her turn into a Sentinel to show, what kind of maniacal villain is behind all this. Doesn't matter. He's gonna infect everybody. But anyway, when the Sentinels go in and try to attack Rogue, and Wolverine's like, I got 6 reasons why you I can't remember what he said. And then Nightcrawler shows up and he's like, no, my
9.
Yes, and he's holding his sword. Oh my God. I jumped up and I said, fuck yes. I was so happy.
Screaming.
I was so happy with that. Oh, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Because it's it's Nightcrawler and Wolvie. It's Fuzzy Elephant and Logan, man. That was my childhood. I love those comics. So to see that play out on my TV, man, manly eye sweat. I loved it coming down my face. It was perfect. This is a 10 out of 10. I loved everything about this episode. And maybe because I was like, Operation Zero Tolerance, whatever. But no, they went other ways with it. Oh, God, it was so good. And you're right. The whole Nathan and Jean. And
I did like that a lot.
That was such a nice. See, I knew something. Look, Operation Zero Tolerance. That's my childhood. Martian likes it. Martian likes it. And that's wonderful. I'm glad you like it.
I like when he brings the Porsche out. Like, that was.
Oh, the Easter egg, dude. The Easter egg in the next episode. Let's talk about episode 9. Episode 9.
Wow, and episode 9.
Wow. 2 of Tolerance's Extinction. Amanda.
Yeah. No, this is a solid episode. I was not expecting, I guess I was expecting the conflict between Xavier and Magneto. I like that he came back. We get a little bit of that, why he's telling Scott why he chose to give everything to Magneto. He wanted him and Jean to live a normal life. He was like, you guys have been my students for a year. Like, you were my students. You're still here. Like, I want, like, the whole purpose for you is to move on. And they weren't, like, right. And they weren't. And so that was his hope. But, I think through all this, it's like, well, can we ever really truly move on from the X-Men? But man, there was so much this episode that I really enjoyed. Then it leads up to the ending of, you have that eternal conflict between Magneto and Xavier and trying to take each other down. Magneto's trying to prove his point, and he has Asteroid M now, and Magneto or Xavier's trying to stop him. And of course, Magneto ends up taking the adamantium from Wolverine. Is that possible?
I know we got to do in a future old reader, new reader.
I'm so cool because I've never I was like, wait a minute. I've watched a lot of X-Men movies and he's never tried that before. I know it's
I want to hear more. This is awesome. Like, I live for people who are experiencing this. I didn't think it was
real metal or like the metal that he could manipulate.
Oh, it's metal, baby.
So,
it's all metal.
No, I love, So this is like, for me, getting up to a 10 out of 10 over here because it was just leading me to, where are we going to go from here now? I don't understand. So I really enjoyed this episode. But I still don't understand. Like, okay, can someone explain why they never did it in the movies? Why but they do it in the comics? Oh well, anyway.
I'm sure they wanted to at one point in the movies. They just never got there. Oh man, Amanda, bless your heart. Peter, what did you think of part 2 of Tolerance is Extinction?
So, I watched it last week and then I rewatched it last night with Kid Crisis, and I just remembered, like, it had so much stuff. Again, the pace, it didn't feel rushed. It just felt like they really had a clear idea of what they had to go through to get to that point. So just, them in the alleyway, Storm coming back, that whole scene that Amanda just talked about with, Xavier kind of apologizing and saying he couldn't think of a better way. I think that got something really right about Xavier, that people are like, oh, he's an asshole. It's kind of become a meme, Professor Xavier's so mean or whatever. But he wants the best, but he's playing the highest stakes game, and he's got to make these decisions between child soldiers or not. And he's not team child soldiers generally, even with all the retcons. He tries to let people have a life, and just his torment and being like, I was really hoping that this was going to move on in a way that was constructive without me. That was huge. Then for them to walk out to the docks, this is me going, wait a second, Colossus isn't here. Who's going to defect? And then, of course, it was going to be Rogue.
Yeah.
And so, I think this really hit the mark for me, where it hit a lot of nostalgia storylines, but it did them in smart ways. And then the sequences at the end, the fight sequences, just went on forever. I kept thinking, like, could this possibly be topped? But then, especially them on Asteroid M, like team PvP, like team versus team fighting it out. It just felt like it couldn't possibly get bigger. And then it kept getting bigger. Cable versus Jean, just the whole sequence of Jean versus Sinister. Again, like, to deliver at this level. And this, I think, did a thing that a comic book can't do. A comic book can't linger on a fight scene that long because it just reads too fast. If you do a fight scene that's that long continuously, that doesn't have dialogue, it just kind of just turns into a flip book. But the cartoon can manage that. I mean, I don't want to just be handing out 10s,
but
I don't know.
Peter,
Peter, 9.
No, Peter.
Peter, you could be honest.
You can be honest. Be honest.
This is more 10s than I give to comic books in a year. Just to put that in perspective. But I think the show is
that's just how good this is, though, right?
It's that good. Yeah, I think it might be a 10.
All right. Call it a 10. Peter, this is a 10. Come on.
I'm going to ruin my reputation here.
I know.
People are going to think I like things, Omar.
It's what I do.
We'll put you on something else that you can like.
You do like things.
Peter. But I gotta say, to me, it's a 10 because it wasn't just nostalgia buttons. I think if all this did was push a bunch of nostalgia, adamantium on the docks, if it just hit all those buttons, then it's like an 8 or 9. I have those comic books. I've read them many, many, many times. The fact that it found something new and transformative to do, the fact that it gave Cable a role in all this where he didn't originally have a role, the way that it put Rogue on the other side, to me, that's what makes a 10. Like, we're not signing up for this or for the MCU just to see things regurgitated to us. And we also just don't want to see totally irrelevant plots that like don't feel real for the characters, which I do think the MCU sometimes will do. This was quintessentially an X-Men story, but even if you have the comics committed to memory, Amanda, it still would have surprised the hell out of you. Really? So that to me is why.
Yeah.
Peter, blue and gold team. The mere thought of just Cyclops going, all right, we're going to split up into 2 different teams, X-Men, and blue and gold is like, I was like, oh, give it to me, baby. Just bring it. But, oh, dude, when him and Nathan are having that wonderful father-son moment, and he talks about how ridiculous the outfit looks, and he's like, what did you expect, black leather? Oh, my God.
Yes. That was great. Wait,
even Jubilee, I hated that era of Jubilee when she turned into a vampire. I know we differ in opinion. That's okay, Peter. I still love you. But even I got excited over her new costume. All these costumes. Exiles, freaking Morph, brown and gold Wolverine. Yes, baby. Storm in her classic outfit. Oh, my gosh. I don't know why Beast wasn't wearing anything else. I guess he could have, like, he could have had a second mutation, but that's okay. That's okay. Cyclops going with his old skull cap and Jean going back to the classic outfit. Oh, dude.
Morph has shoulder pads. I was like, why?
Yeah,
for what reason?
Exiles Morph, man. That was good. That was good. I like that.
Oh.
I mean, and going to Asteroid M, which was the stupid plot to the not stupid. What was it? Pride of the X-Men, which is that 1989 X-Men cartoon pilot that
the video game is based on.
Which the Konami video game is based on. That's right. And it's like coming back full circle. I loved it. 10 out of 10. This is X-Men, baby. Oh, God.
Yeah.
This is so good. Oh, and then the last moment of Fatal Attractions when he's ripping his adamantium out. I'm like, how much are you going to put into one season? We've had Inferno. We've got Operation Zero Tolerance. They can't do fall. Oh, they are doing Fatal Attractions.
But it doesn't feel like it's a lot. And I think it's the way they chose to take certain elements of those stories, which I've never read the stories, but to me, it didn't feel like it was overcrowded with stories.
That's so fascinating to me. So you never felt like rushed at any point as somebody who doesn't know the stories. It felt like a naturally evolving.
Yeah, it felt like a natural, evolution. Yeah, it didn't feel rushed to me.
Oh, man. Okay. Last episode.
This one had so many heart-wrenching moments, too. For me, anyway. But it's gonna be great. I lost
part 3.
Yes. So we have Jubilee who like can't fly and everyone else can fly. And she's like, well, I can't fly. I loved have that, but also you have Roberto coming into his own as Sunspot when he's like, I'm Sunspot. Like that was, there's so many good moments in here. And then of course, when, obviously, so, Bastion is going to take Asteroid M and he's going to create an extinction event, right? So you have on the ground, you have the president trying to figure out what to do. You have
President Kelly's
in there trying, everyone wants him to, take action with the missiles, and you have T'Challa and both Captain America like, hold on now, we don't let's not go crazy here. We have the X-Men on Asteroid M trying to stop this extinction event, and they're all taking on Bastion. And then meanwhile, you got an amazing, I always love when you get Xavier going into people's minds and you have those you have those storylines and those sequences. So we have him and Magneto, and he stopped Magneto when he was trying to rip out all the adamantium, right? So Wolverine's kind of taken out in this last episode. He's not really doing it. He's in remission, or where he is. He's not doing anything. I don't know what he's doing, but he's under right now. He's not doing anything. He's been taken out, which I appreciate because he's one of those, not that I don't love Wolverine, but he is one of those we're going to see him in Deadpool later on this year. So it is nice to give the other X-Men time to shine in the comic books or in the animated series. So he's been taken out, which I was like, okay, I'm good with that. And then you get to see Magneto and Xavier, which has some really great moments between the two of them talking, and Magneto saying he can't see his parents' faces because he was a child, right? When they were taken that, I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay, I'm going to start crying. I forget, we saw it in the live action, we know where he came from in the Holocaust and everything, but for some reason it hit harder for me, that sequence of him talking about how he can't see his parents' faces. It's like, that's so good writing. That's so true. If they were taken from you so young, would you even remember if you don't have photographs or anything? And that's so powerful. And then you have that, and at the same time, you also have that whole thing. And then you get Scott and Jean talking to Cable when they're when Jean transports them, and he's like, this is not really, you guys are coming here to say goodbye. This is really what I had thought was going to happen, huh? And he's like, Cable tries to take it all in stride. And then Scott shows it, he's able to show him his eyes. You have this, oh my God. I was like, this is the same. This is perfect because you just had Magneto, who's I don't remember our parents' faces. And then Cable's getting to see that he shares the same features as his dad, who he never really got to meet until this moment, not growing up, because he was taken from Bishop, or Bishop had taken him. So you get to see that. And that alone, this episode for me, 10 out of 10. But then you get, they're able to stop the extinction event, but at what cost? All of a sudden, they're thrown into time and space, not just space, time and space. And you have Jean and Scott ending up in the future, in the same, wherever Nathan ends up, which I'm not familiar with that in the comics, so I can't tell you what that is. And then Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Xavier, and Magneto, they're all in ancient Egypt, which Omar had to explain to me was young Apocalypse. And I was like, wait a minute.
That's what the TV show is going to be called, The Adventures of Young Apocalypse. And Zabanur.
And then, of course, we get Forge. It's been 6 months all of a sudden, and no one's heard from the X-Men. Forge is looking for him, and then Bishop shows up, and he's like, we got to go get him. You don't know me, but we're going to be best buds. I love that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh. I love it so much. I was like, yes. We know it's already been renewed for season 2, and then we get a really awesome little teaser end credits of the actual Apocalypse in current day, and maybe Gambit return. This episode was 10 out of 10 was it for me, especially the dramatic moments with Magneto and Xavier and Cable and Jean and Scott. It was, this was fantastic. And of course, Sunspot becoming his own. That was great too. And saving Jubilee, because who couldn't fly? I liked that.
Peter.
It was so much. I again, many times you'll hear me say this season, I couldn't believe it kept going. I kept looking at the clock and being like, is there more? And then what are we going to do with 10 more minutes? And it just had more and more and more. I will say I had 2 problems with it that ultimately in the watching of it kind of took me out of my enjoyment a little bit. And I think lowered it a little bit from Amanda's hype level to where I am, which is when if you're gonna do a Phoenix moment and then have her disassemble Bastion, and then have Bastion get even bigger, but then it felt like the rules of how tough Bastion was didn't totally make sense to me. And I know he got powered up with Cable's arm at one point, which I think they actually kind of underplayed that meant he had the TO virus integrated with his body, which I think was like kind of Easter eggy if you know the whole Cable thing front to back, although the cartoon did give you that information. But I guess I just kind of like lost touch a little bit with it after the Gene sequence when Bastion was still flying around. And then there was the moment with the Asteroid M where like we all have to work together. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be something really cool. Maybe Rogue is going to absorb all of their powers to fight Bastion, which she did in the comic books right when Bastion killed Nightcrawler, which like almost felt like it was going to happen. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then it was like Storm is going to throw a cyclone up from her hand. It just felt like, even though it was so visually cool and there were so many moments, Rogue versus Bastion, wow. Sunspot versus Bastion, Jubilee versus Bastion, the Sentinel flying in and everybody climbing out of the Sentinel, giant kaiju fight style versus Bastion. All really cool. But I just think that like the pace maybe got away from them a little bit in making Bastion so big and so indestructible that I like didn't even fully buy when he finally got destroyed. Although I love that Scott offered him compassion in that past
he's like
moment.
You X-Men.
I have so much to say about all the final scenes and ticklers and stuff, but I assume we'll come back around to that. So I don't need to. I mean, Rachel Summers is one of my favorite characters. So I think this is a solid, extremely respectful 8 for me.
There we go.
8 out of 10. There was one moment that took me out of this entire episode, and it wasn't anything that you have mentioned, but it was when Sunspot went to go and save Jubilee, and I thought for probably about 5 seconds, would she really be able to breathe up there?
Well, it's the blue area.
Right, it is, but she would still be having problems. But then I thought, you know what? It's goddamn X-Men. Never mind.
Rule of cool, Omar.
I'm just gonna go ahead. But okay, if we're gonna go with that rule, Peter, then you shouldn't have a problem with Jean taking out Bastion because
when rule of cool makes it so you don't know what the stakes are. That's when it starts to bother me.
But if Jean can take out Bastion as Phoenix, it's still to me like when she became the Phoenix, like in the comics, that part of her could always. Like it's always connected to the Phoenix Force. So it like helps whenever it's needed. I know it's such a weird like MacGuffin, like, oh yes, we can't get out of this storyline. What's gonna happen? Oh, let's just write it that Jean can use the Phoenix Force and gets the X-Men out. So I was okay with that. And I was, normally I hate when when bad guys turn good at the last second. I hate that trope. But it kind of worked here because it's like, okay, I really like the way Cyclops let down his guard, and he was like, okay, X-Men, stand down. That was cool because I was like, oh my God, there's going to be more fighting. Oh no, there's not. This is different. And at first I thought Bastion was like, whatever, but then he was like, so who knows? Who knows what would have happened? And we didn't even talk about all the freaking Marvel superheroes. Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Mary Jane, and Peter Parker, and Flash Thompson in the background at the freaking store. Like from the cartoon, not the comic books.
Yeah.
That was a nice touch. Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger. Who else? Captain America and Iron Man just hanging out. The whole idea of Bastion like ripping off Ultron to like take his plot from Age of Ultron, the movie, right? Not the comic book. Like all these like the animated universe can be so much bigger now that they've established all these characters are part of it. I loved it. This is gonna be so dorky, and only probably 2 people in the chat will know what I'm talking about, but I got Sailor Moon movie R vibes from this when the asteroid's crashing down and all the sailors the Sailor Scouts are up there with Sailor Moon. We got to stop it from crashing to Earth. Anyway, I got those kind of vibes from it. Even the music that was playing, I love this, man. And then the after credit and the where Cyclops and Jean turn out and Nathan's there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Mother Ascani. Oh, this is so awesome. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I loved it. The last 3 episodes were freaking awesome. I cannot wait for the next season. especially now that they've shown that it's Bastion. If they can do this with Bastion, who I always was like, even in Second Coming, I was like, this guy again. I anything is possible.
Yeah.
Sailor Moon R is a good movie, dude, and that song at the end bumps for anybody that's watched it. Yes, we know that this is a different universe now,
Yes.
but we're going to talk about that here in a second. That's a 10 out of 10 for me, which means...
Also, can we just talk about the romance between Magneto and Xavier?
Oh,
I
yes,
really thought
please.
that I'm not a shipper. I don't care who kisses who and what. But I truly thought so many times that they were going to kiss. Not because I'm like, oh, two men being friends, there's going to be kissing, but because the romantic tension was so thick. And their faces were so close.
I understand. Yeah, I ship. It was there. Yeah, it was there.
I was watching it again with Melanie, and they were getting so close. Like Professor Xavier even leans in.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, are they going to kiss? And I was like, they're just really good friends.
Sure. Okay.
I thought it was beautiful. Like I'm really like
it was beautiful.
A relationship between two people like that does exist. Like one bringing the other one back, and I think it's beautiful. And I don't mean it in a romantic way.
Yeah.
I mean that as in like human beings needing to lean on each other when one is lost and getting the other one back. I think we all go to dark places.
Yeah, I was thinking Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, very similar to Sam and Frodo. So I know a lot of people expected them to kiss, but I want them to kiss him. Fine, they can kiss. I don't care. But I thought it was a really beautiful
relationship. 2 men could be like, that's okay.
I mean, yes, the whole idea of X-Men anyway was also because 2 men had a bad breakup. I've seen that over and over on the internet.
That is great.
That is the idea of X-Men. All right. So our buddy James has actually rounded up the series for us. Amanda's average is at 8.8 out of 10.
Strong.
Omar's average is at 8.95 out of 10. And
Peter's not right.
Peter the hater.
I see there my reputation is intact.
It's still at 82%. It's still not that.
But I want to hear from you all. What did you think?
Yes.
I mean, it's different than doing an average, but if you had to take the whole season 1 and give it a final rating, would you agree with the rating that James put together for us, or overall, like thinking everything like, okay, this worked, this didn't work? I'm going to let Amanda go first. Do you agree with your rating of
overall? Yeah, I think so. Almost a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I agree.
9 out of 10. Okay. 9 out of 10 from Amanda. Sorry. I'm sorry. 8.8.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm going to round up because that's what you would do in math.
That's what you do. Peter, would you round down?
For me, 4.5 is like just a hair off of perfect, right? It's like, can't call this perfect, but it's as good as something can be without being perfect. And it's just episode 4 that makes me wonder if it should be rounded down. I do think I could give it a 9 out of 10. It's perfect X-Men media. What is going to get X-Men better than this? The only thing that's ever come close to touching this is Legion.
I forgot you were a big fan of Legion.
Oh, man.
Really?
X-Men should be that up all the time. If X-Men,
I feel like we need to watch that now. Because Omar, you never watched
it. Is so messed up. It is the most messed up possible take. It's like more messed up than Grant Morrison could mess up X-Men. And it's beautiful.
Whoa. Okay. I think I've watched like 1 or 2 episodes. And I like Dan Stevens. So I was like, oh, I should watch this. But I never took it into consideration. Seriously.
So that's a 9 out of Peter. Was that right?
Yeah, I think
he's
a 9 out of from Amanda. To me, I think part of what makes a season great is the ending, right? If it doesn't stick to the landing, it could make it bad. I mean, we've seen it happen with shows like Game of Thrones or Lost, depending. Well, I guess it depends on how you feel about the endings. But for me, it really stuck to the landing. It started with a 10 and ended with a 10. It's not perfect. I had issues with the pacing, but this goddamn show is a 9.5. This is X-Men. I have no idea how they're going to do the movies. Like they have set the bar so high. They've set the bar so high that it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
To make anyone happy with the movies.
because they take the dialogue, like they can still have fun with it, but they take it seriously. Like I just imagine if this was the current MCU dialogue and how pared down it would be just to jokes. I know I keep looking at like, Thor Love and Thunder and things like that, but I'm like, gosh, I can see how they would easily just take some of this stuff and just strip it away from some of its meaning. And I don't know. Yeah. I hope they don't do that when they finally bring them to the screen.
I'm going to highlight our viewers and what they thought of this particular season right now. So this whole series is 9 out of 10. Mort, and we didn't talk about that moment when
he turned it in. Oh,
my non-binary icon.
I know.
You know what it reminds? Have you all watched? This is a little bit of a spoiler, but have you all seen Angel season 5?
Yes.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a certain death in there in season 5 where one of the characters is dying and the other character pretends to be someone else as they're dying so they can say goodbye. And I thought that was a beautiful moment. 10 out of 10, 9.5, 10, 9, 9, 9.7, 9, 9.5, 9.5 pacing issues. Yeah, I agree. 9.5, 9.5. You get an extra point stuck to the landing. Hey, my man.
Yeah, it is the landing.
It would be a 10 if Gambit didn't die.
I know. Hey, I feel like Gambit's coming back, guys.
Well,
top and all, baby. 9.5, 9.7.
In some form of fashion.
We are going to talk about that here in a second. And I just want to make sure I got everybody's rating that was here with us. 97 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Martian, that's the
lowest rating anyone has given.
Yeah,
no one has rated lower than an 8. Not even
that's damn
known
good.
Hater crisis.
Yeah, I like
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Keep the final episodes of Clone Wars as benchmark. 10 out of 10.
Smart. Yep.
9 out of 10. Hot Magneto would.
Hot Magneto.
Yeah, I think Magneto. I can see a lot of older men now grow out their hair like Magneto and start.
They should all grow out their hair like Magneto and just embrace it.
Ripping some muscle there. The 3 people who watch Angel. What are you talking about? Angel had a huge fan following. You jerk. 9 out of 10. Wish we would have seen Mystique somehow.
I wanted Val Cooper to be Mystique so bad, and I was on that theory up until she gave the humanity speech and said Magneto was right, and I was like, well, that only works if she's human. If she was Mystique this whole time, but when she was like sneaking around during the Genosha episode, I'm like, that's Mystique. I wanted it to be her so bad.
How many red herrings? I fell for so many red herrings. I'm like, oh, they're gonna go this route. Nope, they're not. They're going this route. What the hell? 8 or 8.5 could be nudged up. Was just a bit rushed.
It was fast. It was absolutely fast.
10 out of 10 is Justice League Unlimited, Superman, World of Cardboard speech. 9 out of 10, I saw Psylocke. So let's talk a little bit about the things we saw and what we want to see in season 2. And everybody, please join in. So yeah, at the end, we did see, that we have some of the team trapped. 3,000 was it 3,000 BC? Is that what it was?
I think
Can't remember the year exactly. Where we saw Enza Banur and we saw, Cyclops. No, we didn't. We saw Cyclops and Jean in the future.
In 36, 39, 60, 80.
Yeah.
Like, so they're like 3,000 years opposite.
Coincidentally enough, right beside the Eskani clan. With Mother Eskani, who is, of course, Rachel Summers, which has she been introduced in the cartoon?
I think we've seen her in one of the visions of something, like when Jean and Madeline were having all the visions of. I feel like we've seen her animated, but we haven't met her.
Okay,
all right,
I could be wrong. I'm gonna look it up.
Explain who Rachel Summers is. Obviously, Scott Summers. I understand, but the relation.
It is going to be really different how that's going to work out. And of course, these are also based on comics. So everybody go and read comics if you love the X-Men cartoon. We have the Rise of Apocalypse, which was Adam Polina during that time drawing those 4-issue miniseries. But Enza Banur has always been a part of Apocalypse. Oh, not always. I'm sorry. Not during his business days and when he turned his arms into wings to fly away and fight another day. But later on, it was kind of like, oh, he's been around for a long time. And then we get Apocalypse coming to Genosha. And I actually I was joking with Peter about this, that his favorite X-Men run might be adapted in the next season. And he's holding up a playing card.
Yeah.
And he says something about death. Right? He was like, there's been a lot of death. This is Apocalypse holding up one of Gambit's playing cards. Now, if you follow the comics, there was this really, really bad storyline, depending on who you ask, called Blood of Apocalypse, where
I mean, it might have been the best of the Milligan storylines, which
is where Gambit became Death, one of the Horsemen of Apocalypse. So it could be that, you know, they're teasing that, but you know, we've had a couple of red herrings in this show. I mean, they could just be teasing it, and then everybody gets psyched up. Oh, Gambit's coming back as Death. That's it.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens. We also don't know who took them and separated them through time. Like it was mentioned something or someone could have. And Bishop is really like cryptic when he's talking. If I were Forge, I'd be like, yo, who the hell are you and how'd you get in my freaking house?
Right? Like, who are you?
What do you mean, us? I ain't seen you with the X-Men. So those are some storylines that could be played out. Now, Peter, any thoughts as to who has pulled the X-Men from Asteroid M and thrown them through time?
I mean, it's wild because I think the thing is, what if we assume they would have died, right? And that the only way to avoid that was to shunt them through time. If we take that perspective, there's actually a lot of comics that have taken the perspective of like, what if so-and-so died or whatever, but usually that leaves us with an altered present because they have died and it wrecks the timeline, right? That's what original Age of Apocalypse was. And so I think they seeded a couple of interesting things. I mean, we have briefly met Legion in the original animated series, but it wasn't like as Legion. He was just like a mutant who could like shoot stuff out of his hands, if I remember correctly. So I definitely think there's mutants that could be at work, or they could just say, oh, it was Magneto and his power going, you know, flaring up in the space-time continuum, or was the Phoenix Force or something. But I think it is interesting what it sets up. You know, we've seen that Rise of Apocalypse plot before, but not with present-day X-Men. That's actually a lot more like Apocalypse Wars from All New, All Different Marvel, when the all-new X-Men team written by Dennis Hopeless goes back to Ensav Nortime to hang out with him when he's young originally. So like that was interesting to me because but then there's also Ages of Apocalypse that happened just after the Shattering and after the 12, which like, so it's not like any one storyline, but that's what the show does the best, right? Then in the present day, I think, you know, we had that corkboard on the wall with all the mutants who were there who are missing based on who's around. Emma and Kitty, like, are we going to get some kind of Generation X type thing with Kitty as the Jubilee? Are we going to get Forge and Emma as the headmasters? It really feels like if there's going to be any kind of present day, it could be a little Gen X-y maybe, or Hellions-y, Massachusetts Academy, but Emma's already Diamond. And then the future thing is clearly Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, but it's Jean that's got her there physically, which in the comic book, it was only their mind projected to the future, which is a lot of wankery. And I think it makes it easier to just say they were physically sent there. But I mean, that storyline is epic. I've read that really, really recently. It's really, really huge and cool and really well drawn in the comic book. So we have 3 potentially massive storylines. I do think they wind up braiding together to either give us the 12 or Age of Apocalypse. I feel like that's going to happen. And then after that, I think we are going to get Onslaught. And I think it could have been Onslaught that did the deed and sent them to the past and the future, because we just had the rad bromance of Xavier and Magneto in his mind. And I think the love child of that is obviously Onslaught.
Obviously. You know, when I was watching the episode first, I thought, oh, it's Strife maybe that pulled him from the timeline. And maybe still blaming Cyclops and Phoenix for not raising him and sending him to the future. So maybe the kid that they see as Nate, that could be the twist, that it could be the clone of Nate. But then he does have the arm already, and I think the eye. So it probably more than likely will be Nate. I do like the idea of Emma playing a bigger role. One of the things that got me hyped up is I made my youngest daughter, pause. And I said, okay, pause it right here when Forge is looking at the screen, and one of the things I caught was like Scarlet Witch says she's off world. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but all the X-Men are believed to be dead. 6 months have passed, and now we have Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde. We've got Colossus up there. And I was Dust. Yes, all these characters. I'm like, please, please, please tell me that we have a backup team at the beginning of season 2 that is the new X-Men, because that would be so awesome.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Who would lead that team? I don't know. We still don't know where Wolverine and Morph and Storm are. Storm could have ended up back. No. He did say that Storm is gone. But I was thinking, who could lead the reserves? Who would lead the X-Men backup team if they're all gone? Cable would be the obvious choice if he's still hanging around in modern time, unless he's trying to look for his parents somewhere. And how in the world does Bishop know that they've been not where but when? And then does that mean that Fitzroy is involved, like the Upstars? Maybe they're playing a game. But why would they grab the X-Men and send them to those spots? Yeah, I'm excited. Oh, that's a good one. Emma Frost leading the X-Men. Oh my gosh. That's a good one. Maggot said no one. Said no one ever. DeMayo said Wolverine, Storm, and Morph are in one of the 2 timelines.
Oh, so we're gonna find they're just we don't know where they are. Maybe they're in the future.
Good way to introduce alphas. It is not. President Creed and the Purifiers could show up. Well, I did see William Stryker. Wasn't he on television at one point? He was a little Easter egg, I think, in like one of the 3 final episodes. But I mean, we've kind of had that story already about genocide with Bastion. I can't imagine them doing that again for the next season, right? I think they're going to go somewhere else. Exodus was also on the board too, and apparently survived Genosha.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see where it ends up going. I was hoping they'd end up with Magneto traumatized, and Exodus gets pissed and starts religion spreading the word. I mean, he very well could. I mean, he very well could start leading a cult and saying, "Hey, Magneto is dead. So is Professor X."
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see in season 2, Amanda? As a I
don't know. Everything y'all are talking about. I'm like, it's over my head.
You've read enough comics to know some of the storylines, but
sure.
More importantly, you have watched so many movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen time travel before.
Yes, I have.
You've displaced characters for a whole season. What would you like to see in the next season? What kind of storylines, romances, and throuples?
I mean, I don't know what romances currently exist besides like Jean and Scott and that whole love triangle there, and apparently Magneto and Xavier. No, I would like to see a new X-Men team that is leading the charge in present day, and I would like to see some type of like time heist, if you will, of trying to figure out how to get our X-Men that are displaced through time back to the present day. I mean, that for me, that's going to be, but I'm also interested to see like why they were put in these 2 places, because I think that has something to do with what we're going to see in the next season. Obviously, Scott and Jean thought they were never going to see Nathan again, right? That's why they said their goodbyes, only for them to end up into the future where they meet a young Nathan, right? So what does that mean? I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. Why are they seeing him now? Like, that storyline's clearly not over. And then we see Apocalypse in present day, but now hot young Apocalypse as well in 3000 BC.
I love all these hot versions of these.
He's an attractive looking dude. When he's younger. He doesn't look that way. Like, it's like mostly like weird looking in the future. In the present,
he's put on some muscle.
So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm interested to see what the parallels are going to be, and if what happens in that timeline affects the current timeline, and if that, if we talk about those theories about changing time and if that affects anything. I mean, not that I think I want to end up with them, changing something to come to the future and then everything's different again. But I'd be interested to see what happens there. I mean, I don't know.
Luis Guzman should lead.
I hope that does not happen, guys. I don't want that. No.
People want to see Age of Apocalypse. Interesting, which I think was mentioned a little bit earlier. It's always possible next season just focuses on them all coming back, as well. As much as I'd like to see a new team, first half of the season could be adventuring into the two timelines and return. The way this, or how fast this show moves, it wouldn't surprise me if they wrap up like Lost X-Men in time in 2 episodes, or maybe even 1.
Well, if they run it concurrently with whatever's happening in present day, I can see that. I mean, I think that Forge and Bishop are going to obviously be forming some type of a team to go to try to find them. Because why else would Bishop show up at the end there?
Yeah.
But I think Apocalypse is the end game for this next season. I think that's going to end up being.
Peter,
the end game story.
When Bishop approached Forge, he called him Daniel. He didn't call him Genesis, which I was thinking he was going to do. I remember in the comics, that was one of my favorite moments when the first time they meet, he was like, Genesis, and Forge was like, close, and he was like, something like, Bishop said something like, not yet, maybe, tee because he knows the future. So he called him Daniel, which is really interesting because as far as I know, in the comics, he's never had that name. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. So I started Googling it like right before we jumped on the show. And apparently the name Daniel Lone Eagle shows up in Claremont's outline for his debut when he first appeared. Oh, but it was never used in the comics. So that is really freaking cool that they went there.
Well, and also, I think, was it Bishop or was it Cable that I think it's Bishop, when we first meet him in the original animated series from the 90s, he's like running on that path through all the different timelines and he's like stuck in between them all and he's trying to figure out like how to get into a timeline. And then we've seen him in the future with Forge. I just thought it like made a lot of sense to me that this is like canonically where he forges his present day relationship with Bishop, with Bishop and Forge, so that in the future, older Forge is still an ally of Bishop. Like, I don't know. It just felt like a nice little bit of poetry that matched up with the original series to me. But yeah, I'm really interested in that time heist aspect of it, Amanda, because it's like, we're going to see Apocalypse in all 3 of these timelines. Yes. So are we going to see like parallel action of like people changing things in one timeline? I think that's how we could get AOA. Like, what if something really bad happens that shifts the timeline radically all the way back from 3,000 years ago? Because the show never does anything just like the comics. So it's not going to be like Magneto getting assassinated or whatever, or Xavier getting assassinated. It's going to be a twist on that. So yeah, I think we're going to see like some parallel action across all 3 timelines. It's going to resolve into the present. Apocalypse is going to be on Genosha with like whoever he brings back. Everybody thinks it's going to be Gambit, who was Death in the comics, but people in the chat are pointing out he had a Queen of Hearts card. Does that, and like, so what woman died on Genosha that he might want to bring back? Maybe, or is it just because we all love Gambit that was hard? Then they're going to do like a combo of like Eve of Destruction / Blood of Apocalypse on Genosha to fight the present day Apocalypse, and then we're going to do Onslaught, and that's probably just going to be like 4 episodes.
Yeah. With how fast this is moving, yes. And we don't, I mean, it's not like they're guaranteed more than the second season. So yeah.
No, 3. They're 3.
So, okay.
Yeah, Bo DeMeo has written the second season already. The third one is approved and like outlined, but I think it's still in production.
Yes.
I feel like this is really cool. Forge finally has a name after 30 years. Didn't they do something similar with Rogue in the comics?
She wasn't Anna Marie until
the movie. Yeah, so it's very similar to that. Queen of Hearts hints at Gambit because he dropped this card.
Oh, he dropped that card. Good catch.
Okay.
Yep.
Good
Back to the Peter Milligan era of X-Men comics then.
Boy. Also, how about Gates McFadden as Mother Ascani? Oh my
is that
goodness.
who it was?
Oh,
yes.
that's who it was?
Beverly Crusher.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. I didn't even catch that. Where'd you see that?
As soon as she opened her mouth, I was like, what? A, because we know I'm obsessed with Rachel Summers. But then B, when it was that voice came out of her mouth, I was like on the ground. I was like, what is happening?
That's amazing.
I had no idea that you were also a Star Trek. Well, it makes sense that you were a Next Generation fan.
I'm the
Yep,
right age.
it
The right
is.
age of nerd. That would have been one of my nerd things.
How about Alpha Flight with Psylocke and
I know.
who else was it? Frenzy that was with them?
I think somebody
I was trying to
said
find a
was
screen
Celia
grab.
Wise?
Oh, it could be Cecilia Reyes. That okay.
Let me see. If I
North
can
Star
find it.
and Aurora were there as well as Puck. But Psylocke was with them, which I found so interesting. And yeah, I think well, there could be Frenzy or it could be Cecilia Reyes. Was she in Genosha?
She has the headband, which is, and she kind of looks real casual, which makes me think it's Cecilia. Oh, you know who it is? It's I think it's Cypher. The one that's like kind of intangible and can like spy on stuff from Young X-Men. That's who it looks like to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I can see that. Let me see if I can grab it. Yeah, now that I'm looking at her, I think it might
Celia.
be.
She has like a pen and a little pad in her pocket, which is like so specific. Does that say doctor to you, or does that say like tech person? It's not Frenzy.
Well, none of these people really speak Alpha Flight to me besides the Alpha Flight characters that I know, right? Like, what is Psylocke doing there? I do love the fact that she's there, though. Like, I'm like, oh, it's Psylocke, and she's with
people
Alpha
in the chat are with me saying it's Cypher. I think we cracked it, Omar.
You cracked? Okay, it's Cypher.
The Cypher.
Everybody, thank you for playing.
But yeah, so can we talk about Black Panther for a second?
Yeah. So interesting. Picard season 3 is a 10 out of 10. The Wheeze is.
Oh, I still have to watch season 3.
So it's Cypher. She was in Genosha. Thank you all. Thank you for playing. Okay, let's talk about the Black Panther of this universe being T'Chaka, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting. Definitely different than the movie. So it's establishing its own universe.
And was T'Challa in any of the 90s animated verse?
I haven't seen those since the
shows?
90s. So, oh no, I bought the DVDs 15 years ago. That's the last time I watched it.
Because I mean, what that really signals is right, like that his father hasn't died, which is the inciting event. So it's kind of like giving us a really interesting timeline moment, which is not all these characters are on the same timeline as each other in the animated universe. So it's kind of like, okay, Cap exists, the Avengers exist, Scarlet Witch is off world, which probably means they're off doing Kree or Galactic
Apparently
Storm.
he was in the Fantastic Four.
But is Fantastic Four in canon to this? I don't know.
When Morph turned into Mr. Fantastic, he was wearing the cartoon
of that Mr. Fantastic.
So it could be in the same universe. I mean, just because of same outfits doesn't mean that it's the same universe, but it could be. And T'Chaka shows up in the Fantastic Four 90s show.
Okay.
T'Chaka, not T'Challa, Raphael?
Maybe he meant Black Panther. I don't know. I don't remember.
But it's interesting to me, and I saw a lot of people talking about it when I got up this morning and checked Twitter, of like, Marvel doesn't really want to jump the gun anywhere in having T'Challa in any of their adapted stuff yet. And I think it was actually Bo DeMeo on Twitter somebody was like, was it T'Challa? And he's like, I can't speak to that, which is pretty obscure for him. So it seems that they had to lay off of using T'Challa, which would be interesting.
I do find it interesting for somebody, and I had no idea. People here were talking about Bo, answering questions and stuff. I had no idea that he was still answering questions. Like, if I was fired from a job, I'd be like, I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know crap about crap. You all have a good day. Do not tag me on X-Men anymore. I find it strange that he's actually interacting with the fans. I could say a lot of,
right? They fired him.
I think that was a statement that they made. They let him go. I don't know what. I don't think anybody really knows exactly why. There's lots of rumors as to why.
Yeah.
But I think that's either says a lot about him. Like, I don't know if I would be that.
I mean, Omar, if you had just made the most celebrated nerd thing on the entire nerd.
Oh, you're right. It was me.
Everybody was talking about it every week.
Yeah.
But then also I thought it was a really classy move that this morning, as all the headlines are like, but DeMeo made it amazing. How could they let him go? He said there was a huge team that made this. He's been crediting the other people who have directed, storyboarded. And, I am not here to speculate on why he was fired. You will not catch me doing that anywhere on the internet.
Mhm.
But I think that regardless of what happened, I think it's a class act to be like, there's a lot of talented people who made the show.
Doing the right thing.
And that's what I would want somebody to say about me. And that's what I would want to say about my team if I was in a similar position. So I respect that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh man. And the fact that he gave like I find it just really interesting that he was like giving people homework before you watch the next episode, go back and
Yes.
watch this or read this. That's really interesting for somebody that got fired and to be that much in touch with the fan base that is still following your work,
Love the
right?
property.
I think that's really cool. It says a lot about him. And I'm very much with you. I have no idea what happened, why he did. All I know is that he did get fired. Prey of the Black Panther episode 20, according to Wikipedia, I have to see it in Disney Plus to see if it was T'Chaka or T'Challa. Thank you for that. Bose is interacting because he actually cares about the work, not just grabbing a paycheck. Well, that's really cool. Oh, Black Panther was voiced by Keith David. Love that guy.
Oh, that's awesome. It's been a while since I've seen
He's a
him.
good-hearted person who cares about the work he created for fans.
Yeah.
So this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad you were able to join us, Peter.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad too.
Now, don't be asking me about IT questions. I left out. Wait, no, I didn't get fired from that. Yeah. No, don't be coming and asking me IT questions. Ask Amanda now. She's your IT guide. I'm done.
Only in cybersecurity, guys. I could only answer those questions, not like help desk stuff.
Canada is part of the British Commonwealth, so Psylocke being British there is a connection. There, Edwin. I knew somebody super smart would be in the chat. Thank you for that, Edwin, for making that connection. Not just Psylocke, but Quanon too.
Nice.
Black Panther was T'Challa in the Fantastic Four 90 series. Thank you for that correction.
Kid Crisis loves the Fantastic Four series. I think it's so dorky. It's probably the dorkiest of all of the animated series. Also the song, which I cannot recall right now, but it's just so funny. And she loves it. She will just like put it on repeat if she has a day where she can watch a lot of TV. And I'm like, no accounting for taste. Children like inexplicable things.
They do.
How do I?
She had to write an essay yesterday, Amanda, for an exam, like an open question exam, which is the first time she's had anything like that. And she said the question was, what was your favorite movie? And I was like, oh no, because there's all those like terrible Netflix movies. Like she likes We Can Be Heroes and like Shark Girl and
like my daughter would get along so well because that is what my 8-year-old loves
Amanda movies.
We hate the rest of us who live in this house hate that movie so much. But then I recently showed her Clue, which is my favorite movie of all time. But then I had to explain like the Red Scare and communism and McCarthyism and prostitution to her so she would get all the jokes. And I was like, please don't say We Can Be Heroes. Please don't say Clue. And she's like, I picked Tomorrowland because it was about changing the world. I was like, good job. Great job. You did a great job.
Good. I'm glad we picked Tomorrowland. Well, we talking about the George Clooney Tomorrowland movie?
Yes.
Oh my God.
She's like, it had a good message, so I thought I could write a good essay about it.
How old is
not wrong.
She's 10.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
awesome.
I just had to share a kid's story with me.
That's amazing. No, my daughter, we would watch We Can Be Heroes. And I was like, yes, I get Pedro Pascal's in it for maybe a minute second, but not that long. And those kids, bless their hearts, so bad, the acting. Because the kids, like one of the kids is Shark Boy and Lava Girl's like kid. I don't know. It's just weird. It's so weird.
Birds so and the bees.
Yeah,
we should do it. Let's do a Reelz talk about We Can Be
right. We should do a Reelz talk about We Can Be Heroes. And the Shark Boy and Lava Girl universe, like that.
Oh wow!
Like
wow!
Just
Are
like
you? I know Amanda might be at that phase with her kids, but Peter, you remember the phase where your kiddo would only watch one thing over and over and over. Remember when the kids were about 2 or 3 years old, it was something that just had to keep playing in the background. I'm like, I am so tired. I think for Lydia, it was Ponyo, and I love Ghibli, but I think I saw that movie every day for at least 3 months, and I was like, we're watching it in Japanese today, and we're watching it in English tomorrow, and that's how my brain is going to be able to function because I cannot keep doing this. And then for Alicia, I think it was something even like, it was something I didn't even like. What the heck? I wish I could remember, but I just remember the faces of them just being obsessed over something and having to watch it every day.
Yep.
Every day on a
We have a no
loop
repeats
almost.
rule, so you got to wait at least 2 weeks to repeat in our house.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's a good rule.
but the way she gets around it is she'll just pick seasons of things and just watch them endlessly. She loves Troll Hunters on Netflix, which is
Yes.
fun. It's Guillermo del Toro, right? Who
My
produces
daughter
it.
loves
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But Amanda, and never in order, just random scrolling
random
through the
episodes.
episode list and picking the one that like moves her on that day. I've seen so much frigging out of sequence Troll Hunters. I have no idea who any of them are, what their powers are. Do they time travel, or do I just see them out of order? I have no idea.
Traveling.
So yeah, that's the repeat in this
That's
house.
awesome.
She's probably watched that Troll Hunters through out of order like 10
That's
times in the last 2
fantastic.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. No, that my daughter has gone through the Troll Hunters. What's that other one? Oh my gosh, on Netflix. The kids, they're in the video game.
We's giving Troll Hunters a 10 out of 10.
Oh wow, dang. Okay. I mean, it's geared.
I mean, it's not bad. It's very
bad.
charming.
I thought
Yes.
you all were talking about the movie first. What was it, a Norwegian movie? I can't remember.
Oh no. No.
I was like, that's
No.
awesome. He's in the Troll Hunters.
Oh, sorry. I took us way off topic with this.
Well,
The
I mean, Omar
kids-
asked the question, so it was very
I
honest.
did.
He did.
I was also a kid that got obsessed over movies, mainly
Oh,
because
100%.
you would record a movie from television and watch it over and over again because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have streaming, right? And mine was probably like RoboCop. I was telling my kids and my wife, RoboCop was a movie in 80s. I think it came out on video like in 88. And I remember rewinding the scene when Murphy got his hand blown off like at least 100 times. I was like, I was sitting there as a kid. I was like, how did they do that? And I rewound it. Like I must have destroyed that tape. I love RoboCop. It's such an awesome movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait.
is this the show you were talking about, Amanda? Lyoko?
No. It's called The Hollow. It's on Netflix.
I remember you telling me about it.
Yes, my daughter likes it. The kids enter like a virtual reality like game. They don't remember they're in the game, so they don't know what they're in at first because their memories are kind of wiped. So they don't know if they're in like a purgatory. But then they realize it's in a virtual reality. Yeah, and then when the ending of it, they're actually like real people. It's wild. There's 2 seasons of it. I didn't expect to make a 2nd season, but yeah, she loves it. That and Centaur World is another one of her favorites.
That actually sounds
our
like a
kids,
show you
if
would
we
watch.
just put them in a room.
They would. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, they would play.
And then we could go to a Fall Out Boy concert.
That's exactly what I would do. But see,
That's
that's
exactly what would happen.
Damn it, dude! We were having one show without mentioning.
No,
No, man, I live for it. I don't know anybody else who like loves them that much, so I am totally into how much Amanda loves Fall Out Boy.
Oh really? Oh, I didn't know you. I didn't know you were a fan.
Wait! I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna fix
No,
this.
no.
He's got to fix the timeline.
No, because we were talking about things that your kids like make you watch over and over again. I was smart with my second one, and I got her into Fall Out Boy music videos to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't want to watch Dance Dance again. I don't want to watch. Like, I love these people. I love these guys. I love this music.
Right, but you kind of like dig your own grave sometimes, and you're like, I'm gonna get my kid into this thing that I love, and you're like, I got this kid. This kid is
Yes, that's
what
exactly what happened. She'd be like, Fall Out Boy, I want to watch Fall Out Boy. And I'm like, okay. But then she picks it. Like, I'm like, oh, let's watch this interview. But no, she wants to watch the same music video over and over again. So, oh, well, oh, shoot.
My cursed thing is I have all of the 5th edition D&D books, and they're like nothing about them's inappropriate. So she will just take them off the shelf and read them. And it got to a point that she has them all committed to memory, including the campaign books. So if I'm like, oh, something, the giant, she's like, well, actually, in Storm King's Thunder, the hierarchy of the ordning is, I'm like, kid. Like,
yeah.
Take it down 3 notches from where you are currently.
Oh, that's how my oldest has become about like Demon Slayer, and she's getting into anime right now. So it is. Yeah.
Now that I can get behind.
We have to be careful because I didn't realize, man, anime, there's some stuff that you have to be careful. You have to be careful. You don't know. It looks like it's innocent, but it is not.
I always tell the story of me buying Lydia when she was 5 years old, Promised Neverland, which is about a school where kids are being like they're it's like an orphanage where kids are being eaten, And she was like, Poppy, I don't think I'm supposed to be reading this. And I'm like, why not? I saw the cover, and she's like, she shows me a decapitation scene, and I was like, give me that book. I had no idea that stuff was going on. But my wife tells an amazing story of renting anime when she was younger. She was probably like in 5th grade, and they rented Ninja Scroll. And if you haven't seen Ninja Scroll is an amazing film, by the way. But there is a sex scene. It's like a not detailed gratuitous, but it's like she's watching it with her mom and dad because she got to pick the video, right? And I was like, I cannot imagine like what it would be like. Because there's like, you know, she was like, I didn't even know you could have sex that way. And but because of Ninja Scroll, she learned. I thought that was really funny. Like that.
That's fantastic.
You're right. That's anime though. Like you never know.
Yeah, I was like, this is a danger. This is territory that I don't know how to navigate because I'm not well versed in anime. So this is
I did see the picture, and it's really interesting. Jason Aaron posted it, and a bunch of the Superman writers and artists.
Yeah,
posted
Jason
it.
Aaron's in there.
You know what's I found the most interesting? The people that were there were Cameron Melker and his wife. Cameron owns In Stock Trades, and his wife owns Lunar, which is the distribution for DC Comics. I found that really interesting, but man, I guess, you know, it's who you know. That's really cool. Good for them. I mean, if I had a chance to get invited to go hang out with James Gunn, I'd go. I'd be like, I've never written a Superman comic, but I sure as hell will go. That's really cool.
Hey, Superman's my favorite character right now, so, you know, invite me.
So there you go.
He's seriously, the Superman comics are crushing it from the beginning of 2023 to present.
Can't they're good. Yeah. Are you reading Joshua Williamson's run?
Yeah.
Solid. Peter.
Omar.
Damn it. Well, we don't have enough time to argue over that. Join the AMA to find the uncensored Melting Ninja Scroll story.
Yep, we'll make sure to bring it up.
You know, there honestly, I feel like Junji Ito would be good for somebody your age or kid or your kid's age. Amanda,
Junji Ito, because like I mean
because like there's that element of creepiness and horror that I think kids gravitate towards, and Junji Ito has it. It's not like not Tomie, because Tomie is it's got a little sexual stories in there, but something like
what we've read.
Uzumaki wouldn't be bad, I don't think. It's got some creepy imagery. I tell you what.
I know. I say it scared me reading it in the dark, in a car in the middle of the field. I was not a fan of it, but at the same time, she does like things like Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff. She can handle horror better than I can.
Yeah, kids at that age, creepy. You know, there's something really attractive about creepy things to a lot of kids in that kind of in-between age.
Yes. I don't think I was ever like that, but it worked for her. It is her. So I don't know.
You didn't have like a Stephen King phase or something like that. I definitely had a Stephen King like interview with a vampire phase.
So Goosebumps, like for Goosebumps.
You never
R.L. Stein.
Yeah,
Christopher Pike.
Yes, Christopher Pike, that stuff.
Scary stories to tell in the dark. Stories,
that was my time. And then I very quickly moved away from it. And I cannot horror. Well, I mean, I do, like, I read horror books and I read horror comics, but it's the visual medium I have an issue with.
I think it's a chance to see something transgressive that feels adult without it being, I mean, it's gory, but it's not real world violence a lot of the time. And it's like, definitely usually have sexual overtones, but it's not like necessarily full of sex. It's just that like creepy line treading push. I used to love stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, like stuff that's just like transgressive.
The TV show or the movie? The
movie. I think it's a way for kids of that age to feel like they're doing something really transgressive.
Wait a minute. Which one? The third one?
I don't know. I love Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's how I felt when
Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was amazing. Like,
I mean, some of them do have sex, to be fair. But
when the nurse is topless and climbing on top of Joey, like, I don't know. And then she turns into Freddy, and I'm like, oh, she's still kind of hot.
Man, That's how I felt sneaking downstairs and catching my parents watching Bram Stoker's Dracula with Keanu Reeves. At the time, I thought that was. Now I realize, God, that's a bad movie. Just like this bad acting.
It's not a bad movie. Okay. Have you real talked that one yet? Sign me up. I fucking love that movie.
We'll have to do a version. We'll have to do.
We will have to do Bram Stoker's Dracula. We haven't done that one. We have
not, but that would be fun because we haven't talked a lot about Keanu Reeves movies, and that would be.
Keanu Reeves. I mean, I mean, it is funny and it is camp, and I know what you mean. I'm not trying to disagree with you. I like it.
But it's funny how, like, when I was 8-year-old, I thought it was kind of scary and so transgressive, like you said. But now I'm like, man, like, it's so.
It is interesting how your tastes change over time too.
Yeah.
So Peter, you are always welcome back. If you want to come back to talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula, by all means,
yes.
You come back and talk. And Amanda's always wanting to talk about movies. We don't always do superhero stuff too. We've done on my month, I got to pick some of my favorite movies to watch, and I let people vote. Like, they never vote for Lady Hawk, though. I don't know.
Yeah, that or Baron Munchausen. Never.
Baron Munchausen.
Never gets picked.
Not vote for Baron Munchausen.
2 years in a row. Never.
These. But then again, when it loses out to movies like Conan the Barbarian, I get it.
Or Never Ending Story. I think that was the one.
Whoa.
Never Ending Story. I don't know if I would watch a remake of that unless Amanda made me force me to go and watch it, to go and review it. That would be about the only reason I would watch it.
A remake of
Never Ending Story. If you make me go and watch it and review it.
Are they doing a remake?
It's been rumored for a while now.
Gosh. I don't know.
Untouchable.
It's a great
There's
movie.
a lot of things that are untouchable. Apparently they're doing some more Lord of the Rings stuff now, though.
Hey man, it's gonna inject money into my local economy, so I am.
That's true. I mean, that's
No, seriously, people here are like freaking out, like, oh, they're gonna do production in North Island again. It's gonna be great. Like, that was like the golden era when they were shooting it here. I mean, I wasn't here clearly because it was over 20 years ago. But whenever you meet somebody who's like 6 foot tall or taller, that was a guy in the year 2000. In New Zealand, he was an extra in Lord of the Rings, because they had so many people employed doing stuff. Yeah. So we had somebody over for dinner one time, and she was like, "Oh, I was an extra," and it was there she was.
That'd be fantastic. Oh, I cannot wait. That's the first thing I'm gonna be.
Maybe by the time we go, the Shire will be opened again, and they're gonna start shooting there. Oh, that's gonna be great.
Oh, I don't know if they're gonna shoot an actual Hobbiton. I didn't even look into that.
If they do, where are they gonna do? So they're doing. So we read that they're doing a Gollum
movie, and it's Andy Serkis, isn't it? I think it's Andy Serkis.
Since he's not doing Planet of the Apes anymore, because Caesar is now long dead. So I guess
that's a good segue for what are we doing next Wednesday, Amanda?
Next Wednesday, so we are going to be ranking all of the Planet of the Apes movies. Yes, including the Mark Wahlberg one. That will also.
I was more surprised that you had watched the original 5 movies. I'm very, very impressed, and I cannot wait to rank these.
Yes, including the new one that just came out. So there will be spoilers for that one.
We could always invite Peter to come back and do a tier maker of all the X-Men.
We have never done one.
I hate X-Men movies, but they'll all be on the F tier. No. I think they're dumb.
Never mind.
I don't think you can adapt most comic books in 2 hours. Only boring comic books like Captain America, where you only need it in 2-hour segments.
Amanda hasn't seen the new one, so I don't think she could spoil it.
Yeah, and plus that's not a secret that he's not. Wait, what? That's not a secret. Am I like crazy? Like the premise.
I'll answer that. Yes, you are. You are. You are crazy. And it's really interesting. Like the Ape movies have had this huge cult following for years.
Yes,
people that really like the Ape movies really like the Ape movies. Can you rate the Planet of the Apes TV series and the animated series? No, because I do not have enough time to watch all the animated series.
Yep.
Animated Planet of the Apes series?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that either, but I could have
no idea.
On Sci-Fi for a while. So did the TV show, too. Ricardo Montalban shows up as a circus owner in the old ones. Does he? Oh my gosh. I'm going to rewatch because I just saw the first 3 last year with my kiddo. So I need to rewatch the last 2. I still think the second one might be the worst movie.
Oh, with Carrie Russell.
Beneath the Planet of the.
Oh, Beneath. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You're talking about the older ones. Yeah.
Maybe Marky Marks. Maybe Marky Marks might be.
He did have Marky Mark in it. What? No. That's
Well,
always
clearly this is going to be a good show because you're already in complete dissent.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
What Josh is saying, Clerks 2 had a Planet of the Apes. Does that count?
No, it does not
Spaceball.
count.
We can put Spaceball in it.
50% of the movies not Planet of the Apes. I don't know if that
will
counts.
always win. Now, I did promise my kiddo I was going to go watch an episode of something with her. So I do have to bounce. And I just want to thank Peter for being here. That was a lot of fun. As you all can see, Peter does love things, apparently. And he loved X-Men Season 1. So 97 Season 1. So that's good. 9 out of 10.
Wait, hold on. William, when did you see them? Was it like a couple weeks ago?
Oh yeah, William lives in New York. We got to meet him at.
Well, I know we did meet him. I remember at New York Comic Con.
I wasn't yelling at you. Okay.
The Hawthorne Heights I saw was 2 weekends ago at the City Winery in New York City. So were we there at the same time? We didn't say hello.
You may have been.
I mean,
Peter, where can people find you?
Yes, where can people find you?
I'm currently locked in a broom closet underneath Omar's stairs, putting together the DC Omnibus Most Wanted annual poll.
It's gonna be glorious.
There's about 600 entries, and I'm now going through and reproofing all of the titles. That's where I will be continuously for the next 72 hours, and also writing about that on Crushing Crisis. That's Crisis with a K, crushingcrisis.com, because I'm releasing all the mapping before the poll, so you know what the maps are when we talk about them when we launch the poll. But it's been a great undertaking. There's been so many people working on it. Omar, Dom, Taylor, Tiger Eyes himself, Brandon, amazing job. Next Imaginaut, and all sorts of people on the Discord. It's been so much fun. And I've got to hang out with so many minties for the last 2 weeks on the Discord, which you can do if you support Near Mint Condition on Patreon.
That's right.
Oh, thank you for that, Peter. A hell of a segue right there. X-Men 97 from Brand gets an 11 out of 10. Made me cry, made me question, made me curious. Beyond my expectations. Yeah. Yeah, so we will be back, I think, on Sunday, right, Peters, when we decided.
That's what I hear.
2:30 p.m. Let's go ahead and start hyping that up. I'll tell Taylor to set something up for social media. Amanda, what's going on?
Wait.
I'm waiting.
Yeah. Hold on.
Still holding. Same thing as waiting. Is your internet? What's the matter?
What is happening?
No, William is killing me right
She's
now.
Still on the Hawthorne.
William, hold on a second. Hold on.
Everybody's holding.
Hold on, William. Wait a minute.
Same thing.
So you saw them that you saw them. This is what you saw 2 weeks ago, William.
Are you rubbing it in William's face that you got to hang out with the band and he didn't?
Well, that's the thing. How was that?
Is that what this was your way to rub it in William's face that you got to hang out?
William, I cannot believe we were in the same place at the same time and you didn't say anything.
Well, he didn't know. Anyway, I'm gonna get the
I didn't talk about it.
Thank you so much, Noah. I feel like Cable. I just finished the finale and wanted to time travel live and tell you all that you all are awesome. Thanks for the X-Men coverage. Now back to the past to restart the stream. Thank you so much, Noah. That was so wonderful.
We appreciate that.
Oh, you did the VIP thing? I didn't do that. I don't like him that much.
I did.
I added that, William.
I was right in the front, William, so my arm was sitting on the stage the whole time. My sister loves Hawthorne Heights. That is her favorite band. Like Fall Out Boy is mine. Like Hawthorne Heights is like one of hers.
I never would have guessed Fall Out Boy is yours.
I know.
All right, Amanda. What do you got to say to everybody now?
All right. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Remember to follow us on all of our social media channels at nearmintcon. Remember to check us out on Spreadshop for some great Near Mint Condition merchandise. And also check us out on Patreon for $1 a month or more. You can support us here in what we do and get some really cool perks along the way. Last but not least, if it's classy and cool, it must be near mint. Good journey to all are one. And we will see you next week for our Planet of the Apes ranking. And thank you again to Peter. It was awesome.
I'm so glad you were able to join us, buddy. Am I ending it or you're ending it? What's going
I
on?
always expect you to end it, so I'm
I-
trying to